Thank you, Chair and members. I can confirm that the meeting is now live.
Yes, thank you. Okay, folks, thank you. There was quite a bit of drama there for a few minutes, but as I said a few moments ago, we're going to call the meeting to order. And this is for August 13th, Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council agenda evening. So to be very clear, should the fire alarm go one more time and we're asked to evacuate, that's what we will do, and the meeting will be ended. So pick up all your things and take them with you, unless it's a really bad emergency, just leave it all. Okay, so, and we would schedule another special meeting to get this work completed. All right, thank you. So Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaty signed in this territory and recognizes that we're all treaty people. We also, the Halifax Regional Municipality recognizes the unique history, heritage, and enduring presence of African Nova Scotians whose roots in Nova Scotia span more than 400 years. We celebrate the significant contributions of African Nova Scotians to the social, cultural, and economic and civil life of our municipality, acknowledge the leadership, knowledge, and excellence that continue to enrich our communities. This affirmation reflects our commitment to honoring the legacy and ongoing contributions of African Nova Scotians in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Thank you. Halifax Regional Municipality. All right. Approval of the minutes of June 10th, 2026. Can we have a motion? So moved by Councillor Purdy, seconded by Councillor Austin. Are there any questions of clarification? No? Questions? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Thank you. It's done. That's already done, David. Sorry, you missed that. We have to vote. So I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion's carried. Thank you. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Mr. Clerk, are there any additions or deletions for the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that there have been no requests for additions or deletions received from the clerk's office.
Thank you. Are there any from any councillors? No. All right. Call for do we need a mover and seconder on that one? Yeah. Seconded, moved by Councillor Hensby, seconded by Councillor Austin. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. Thank you. There is no business arising out of the minutes. I will now call for declaration of conflict of interest. Is there any conflict this evening for any of these? No. Thank you. There is no motion of reconsideration. There are no motions of rescission. There is no consideration of deferred business, and there are no notices of tabled matters. We will begin with the first hearing, 10.1.1, Planning Application 2023-01187, a development agreement for shared housing with special care use on lands off Montague Road, Lake Loon, PID 0062 466 and 8. So at this point, we'll have Jess Harper, the principal planner, do a presentation. Thank you.
Cut back.
Okay. Floor is yours, Jess. Thanks.
Good evening, Chair and members of Harbour East. My name is Jess Harper. I'm the Principal Planner for the Rural Policy and Applications team, and I'm here to present on Plan App 2023-01187, which is a development agreement application for a shared housing with special care use on PID 0062 4668 off Montague Road, which is also the location of the links at Montague Golf Course. Just a bit of an overview here on the application. The applicant is Sunrose Land Use Consulting on behalf of the property owner. They've applied for a 125-unit shared housing with special care facility through the provisions of a development agreement on PID 0062 4668 off Montague Road. The proposed development will be situated at the links of Montague Golf Course, as mentioned, which is the parcel of land as part of this golf course where the driving range is located, as shown here in the photo outlined in red. The subject site to this application, as mentioned, is located off Montague Road and forms part of the Montague Golf Course. This site is located north of the Montague Road and Lake Loon intersection. And it's important to note here that the subject property is located within the Lake Loon African Nova Scotian community. The establishment of a new community vision through a planning strategy review and action planning program is in the early engagement stage with the Lake Loon community. This work is being supported by HRM's African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning Team and the African Nova Scotia Affairs Integration Office. Here's a couple of site photos here of the site. So the first photo shows kind of an aerial overview, which illustrates where the golf driving range is. The proposal of the shared housing with care facility will be located just kind of north of the top within the treed area on the site. And then the photo here that's showing fronting onto Montague Road is where the existing entrance, or sorry, where the proposed entrance into the site will be located. Now, before we dive in a bit more of the proposal, we'll do an overview here kind of on planning in HRM. So kind of at our top level for thinking we're 20,000 feet in the air, looking down at the municipality, we have our regional plan and subdivision bylaw. These documents guide where population growth and the investment of services such as transit, piped water, and sewer should occur. At our next level down, we have our community plans, also known as our municipal planning strategies. These outline where, how, and which types of development may occur. Now, some uses, such as the one here tonight, may only be allowed after community consultation and council approval. And if we kind of look at our lower, most granular level here of documents that we have our land use bylaw, which is our zoning. These documents specify what can be approved without going to council and seeking feedback from the public. So in terms of the process here for a development agreement, the slide in the flow chart in the slide here kind of shows where we started and how we got here. So like all applications, they come in, we get a complete application, there's a staff review that's completed, we do a public engagement component, and then back in June at the last Harbour East meeting, we had our first reading, and then we are here tonight for the public hearing. And then following tonight, of course, the decision of Community Council will be appealable to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board for 14 days. Now, to do a look at the policy itself and the site, the subject property is located within the water service only boundary of the municipality. The majority of the subject property is located within the Cole Harbour Westfall Plan area. However, there is a small portion, which is where the access is located fronting off Montague Drive, that is located within the North Preston, Lake Loon, Lake Major, Cherry Brook, and East Preston Plan area. So the portion of the lands that fall underneath the Cole Harbour Westfall area, which is where the actual shared housing special care building will be located, is split designated urban residential and rural residential and zone single unit dwelling. Now, the access portion, as mentioned, that falls within the North Preston, Lake Major, Lake Loon, Cherry Brook, and East Preston Plan area is designated residential and as well as zoned residential. As mentioned, the existing use of the property is a commercial recreation use, which is the golf driving range as part of the larger Links at Montague Golf Course. And the enabling policy here for the Cole Harbour Westfall Plan area, when we looked at the shared home special care building itself, is policy UR15A and implementation policy IM11. In terms of the North Preston, Lake Major, Lake Loon, Cherry Brook, and East Preston plan, when we evaluated the access portion of the property, that was done under policies RES3 and implementation IM21. So in terms of the proposal itself, we're going to look a little bit here more at what is contained within the development agreement and potentially could be built out. So the major aspects is a 6-story building containing a maximum of 125 residential units. There is one single unit dwelling that's located more to the bottom of the image here that's shown just off of the new common shared private driveway. And the development agreement requires a non-disturbance buffer that will buffer the development from the surrounding area. Now, this buffer is as a result of the public engagement that occurred throughout this application, where concerns were raised by residents on the presence of grave sites within the proximity of the subject property. And as part of site visits that followed kind of that public meetings that we had, it was identified that there were grave sites within proximity. And so the dashed line that we see just on the north side of the new driveway and kind of going up north as well, that is that site non-disturbance buffer that is within the development agreement and required that no development can occur with that, and there can be no clearing, no landscape. The indoor and outdoor amenity areas are accounted for within the development agreement. There's a maximum of 135 parking spaces that are permitted to be provided. This includes a maximum of 53 spaces to be located within the underground parking, and for a minimum of 12 surface barrier-free parking spaces. As mentioned, the access is provided via a new private driveway located off Montague Road. Now, a sidewalk connection is also proposed along this new driveway that will connect to Montague Road. And then this sidewalk will actually continue onto Montague Road to form a new public sidewalk connection from this development down to the Montague Road Lake Loon intersection to tie into where the existing sidewalk ends and to provide access to existing transit services. The development agreement will also permit the retention of the existing golf driving range that is located on the property. So in terms of the policy, if we first look at the Cole Harbour Westfall one, as mentioned, the enabling policy for the shared housing and special care building is policy UR15A. This policy allows for council to consider a shared housing and special care use at a scale that is larger than what would be permitted in the underlying zone by development agreement. As part of that, council shall have regard for the provisions to mitigate the land use impacts on the adjacent land uses, such as setback, scale, design, buffering, the location of parking, access, walkways, and landscaping, that sufficient indoor and outdoor common amenity space is provided for residents, the proximity to public transit, commercial and community facilities, the housing needs of the local community, and infrastructure such as sewer, water, and roads. Policy IM11 is our general implementation policy in the Cole Harbour Westfall Plan. And so this policy states that in considering development agreements or amendments to the land use bylaw, council shall have appropriate regard for the following matters, which consist of the proposal being in conformity with the intent of the municipal planning strategy, the adequacy of sewer and water services, and the use of controls to reduce conflict with adjacent land uses by the uses that are permitted within the DA, the height and the bulk of all proposed buildings, and traffic generation, for example. Now, as mentioned, the access portion of this property is located within the North Preston, Lake Manger, Lake Loon, Cherry Brook, and East Preston plan area. So enabling policies RES3 and IM21 were also taken into consideration. So shared housing with special care is permitted within the underlying residential zone for where the access is located. Now, a development agreement for shared home special care must be enabled under existing policy to allow for council's consideration of the development agreement on the entirety of the property. Policy IM21 is the enabling policy. It allows for consideration by development agreement of a shared housing use where there is policy to allow for the consideration of a multiple unit dwelling or the expansion of a multiple unit dwelling. And then as policy RES3 allows for that consideration of that multiple unit dwelling through the provisions of the development agreement, the two policies together allow for the entirety of the subject property to be considered for shared housing with special care use. In terms of public engagement, the level of engagement complete for this application was consultation achieved through a public information meeting that was held in April 2024. This included 83 residents in attendance and a total of 126 notifications that were mailed to property owners, as well as the feedback that we heard at that meeting. We also heard from an additional 12 residents outside of that meeting. Signs was placed on subject property. A website was placed on the HRM's active plan application website. And the website for this application received a total of 1,468 views over the course of this application as the time of writing the staff report. It's also worth noting that in addition to the April 2024 public information meeting that was held, staff assigned to this case from both HRM's African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning Team and Plan Application staff did host a community meeting in May 2025 with residents of the Lake Loon African Nova Scotia community. Now, the intent of that meeting was to introduce staff to residents, to discuss the community visioning process, as well as discuss the process that we take here for discretionary planning applications. Now, similar concerns that we did hear, which we'll touch here on a slide or two, at the public information meeting were reiterated again by residents at that meeting. So on the next slide, in terms of public engagement feedback that we did hear over the course of this application, the feedback included concerns regarding the proposed scale and density of the shared housing with special care use, concerns regarding the location of unmarked grave sites, concerns regarding increased traffic and lack of public transit and sidewalks, concerns regarding the location of the bioretention pond and wastewater treatment system, concerns regarding potential blasting that might occur on the site, considering that there is a level of underground parking that is proposed, as well as clarifications regarding the proposed use, as this is one of the first shared housing and special care development agreements that we are seeing in front of council. As mentioned, these concerns that were identified at that public information meeting in 2024 were reiterated at the community meeting that was hosted in May of 2025. And it is important to note that, as mentioned, the Lake Loon community is in the early engagement process to establish their new community vision and the action planning program. Now, the community has begun to identify concerns that they have regarding planning and the enabling policies that we have within this area. And these include concerns over the fear of land being transferred away from African Nova Scotian communities, the need to reassess land use planning that may be restricting residents from developing lands in their community, and concerns that multiple unit dwellings such as shared housing special care in low density communities are being proposed. Now, throughout this application process, residents in the community have raised concerns, and staff acknowledge the significance of these concerns and the history and context of the community, and appreciate all the perspectives that have been shared throughout this application. So in terms of what was made change to the application from the development and the property owner as a result of these two meetings kind of that happened, and just the general feedback that staff have provided. So as mentioned, during the public information meeting, it was identified the potential presence of grave sites that were either adjacent or located on the subject property. So following both those two meetings that I noted that occurred, 2 site visits were conducted, which included the coordinator for special places with the province, a representative of HRM's African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team, as well as representatives from the community, the developer, the applicant, and myself. Now, through the site visit, it was determined that while it appeared that no grave sites exist on the subject property itself, there is grave sites located on the adjacent property. So in response to this, the developer has made a number of changes to the layout of the site to address this. So originally, the site plan, I'm going to go back for 1 second just to talk around this, where we see the driveway located south there on that entrance property. The original proposal included a 4-unit, multiple unit dwelling fronting onto Montague Road that would be permitted in that portion of the property in the underlying zone. So as a result of the site visits, that has been removed from the proposal. The driveway has been moved as far south as we felt it could go to still allow for the construction of that driveway into the site. As well as mentioned, the dashed line is at site non-disturbance buffer to prohibit any kind of development or site clearance or planting even of anything within that area. So then we look on the other side at kind of at the back part going north at the rear of those properties fronting on Montague. It was determined while we were on site that a good portion of the property has already been disturbed when the creation of the golf driving range was done. So the coordinator for special places felt that as long as any new development was located within the area of the land that was already disturbed, it was a limited risk that something could be discovered there. So that line going that way kind of is representation of where that limit of disturbance was. And so the parking lot area and the driveway all kind of got reconfigured to ensure that it was all located outside of that area. Go back to here. In addition, the developer has proposed a number of additional care services that we didn't see in the initial application to ensure that the intent of a shared housing with special care use was being met. These included separate parking areas for family members, visitors, and staff of the development. It also included outdoor amenity space for areas, dedicated space within the building for housekeeping services, services on the ground floor, which include a physical activity room, a physiotherapy room, and dedicating housekeeping and self-support services that are located on floors 2 through 6. In addition, to further mitigate the proposed development from the adjacent properties, the shared housing and special care building includes an increased setback from the rear of those properties along Montague Road. This setback was increased from originally at 5.6 meters and now is required under the development agreement to be a minimum of 23.5 meters. In terms of the development agreement itself, so the development agreement is for a 6-story building containing a maximum of 225 units. It allows for a single unit dwelling. It permits the continuation of the existing golf driving range, includes the non-disturbance area to buffer the development as mentioned. There are requirements for indoor and outdoor common amenity spaces, and includes controls on the site such as access, location, and parking requirements. And then also includes a requirement for a new public sidewalk connection from the development down Montague Road to the intersection of Montague Road and Lake Loon Drive. In terms of non-substantive amendments in the agreement, a non-substantive amendment is a change to the agreement which can be made without a formal public hearing. The development officer or community council could authorize this change by resolution. So in this particular agreement, the non-substantive amendments that exist include allowing for minor changes in the layout, the shared housing with special care use that do not result in additional floor area or units, to allow for minor architectural and landscape changes, to allow for changes to the number of parking spaces and signs requirements, and then as well, any changes that might need to occur to the existing golf course use in terms of hours of operation, for example. One thing I do want to point out that was just kind of identified to staff this afternoon prior to this meeting, there was a couple of cross-reference errors that are noted within the development agreement. There is also, and I'll just kind of go through this here really quickly. So within the policy matrix, it identifies that those support care services are provided on floors 2 through 5 instead of floors 2 through 6, that which is correct in the staff report as well as in the development agreement. And then we do have a correction to one of the non-substantive amendments, which reference section 3.14 instead of 3.18, which is the signage requirement, or so the sign section in the development agreement. There was a cross-reference in the requirements for a golf safety certification letter that requires that because the golf course is there, prior to occupancy these buildings, we have to ensure that all the proper setbacks from a golf course design are met. So the wrong clause, again, was just referenced within the development agreement itself. There was the correction to the landscape plan is listed, and one part of the development agreement is Schedule C. It should be Schedule E. We just wanted to ensure that these minor cross-reference changes were in front of community council as they are, and not currently in the development agreement, but following the decision here tonight from community council, those minor cross-references will be updated in the final version that does get sent out for signature and registration. And with that, we've come to the staff recommendation. So staff recommend that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council approve the proposed development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachment A. And then I'm here if there are any questions.
Thank you, Jess. I just want to acknowledge that I neglected to give a little bit of information about how this public hearing will go. So Jess and staff has done the presentation. After that, the public hearing will open and the applicant will be given, I'll go to questions of clarification first to the councillors. After that public hearing will open, the applicant will be given an opportunity to present. And after that, we'll go to the public hearing where there would be public speakers opportunities. So, and Mr. Clerk, can you confirm if any additional correspondence has been received for this public hearing since the beginning of the meeting today?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that all correspondence which was received prior to this hearing has been circulated.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, are there any questions of clarification? Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. Thanks, Jess, for this. So I'll just list all of my questions, I guess. First one is, can you explain what the difference is between a long-term care facility and a shared housing with special care? Next one. So in the report, it's acknowledged that the proposed 6-story, 125-unit building is larger in scale and density than both the surrounding community and what is permitted under the zoning. So what specific factors caused staff to recommend this size development? Shared housing. What guarantees exist that this development will function as a shared housing with special care facility rather than simply a large apartment building? How can we ensure that use? Also, in the future, if this building changes ownership or different, how can we ensure the care services will continue in the future? the sewage treatment, has HRM independently reviewed the suitability of locating a wastewater treatment system and field on this site, or is staff relying primarily on the future provincial approvals? Do we have any say in that whatsoever as HRM? And then the graves, what process legally needs to be followed if unmarked graves are discovered during construction, and how is this enforceable?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Through the chair to the councillor. I'm going to go through them. If there's anything that I forget,
Oh,
please
no, I
let
got
me
them
know.
here. Yeah.
So in terms of the difference between a long-term care facility and shared and special care, so in 2023, when Regional Council approved those larger region-wide shared housing amendments, the term long-term care is no longer in the bylaw. It was all replaced with shared housing and shared and special care. So essentially, both could fall underneath the shared housing and special care use kind of umbrella. We have seen applications come in for, a Birches, a Northwood, a Shannix, that all fall under shared housing special care. Similar exactly, this development proposal falls under shared housing special care. The only difference between those two is that one has a license attached to it, and this one would be in a private ownership. In terms of the evaluation of the proposer, considering the scale and the density that is proposed here in a low density residential environment. So the policy UR 15A in the Cole Harbour Westfall plan, it speaks to that council shall have regard for the mitigation of the impacts on the adjacent lands. The policy itself does not speak to a density minimum maximum that is required for these types of developments. So the elements that staff evaluated in terms of, coming to that determination that this does mitigate from those adjacent land uses is that the building is fronted so that the short end is closest to Montague Road and those properties that are located in the back. They also, as I mentioned, that setback from those properties has significantly been increased as part of this application from 5.6 to the minimum of 23.5 that's required under the development agreement. The design of the building, which the applicant can also probably provide some additional details kind of on what they're planning, but has been designed to include varied materials and colors that are articulated throughout the facades of the building, which will assist in mitigating that impact of the proposal from the adjacent low density residential areas. And so staff determined through these elements that it was reasonably consistent with the intent of the municipal planning strategy. In terms of the guarantee, this development will be a shared housing and that won't turn into, let's say, like more of a traditional multiple unit dwelling. So the agreement is specific. It is for shared housing with special care development. And the intent of that use is defined is to serve individuals with a cognitive, physical, or behavioral limitation. Now, while as mentioned during the presentation, the applicant here has made some significant revisions to the proposal and the floor plans to include those care services that we do consider shared housing with special care. The HRM charter sets out the terms that a development agreement can contain, which includes items that are identified in the land use bylaw. Land use bylaw can require that shared home special care be designed to provide care for residents. It doesn't specifically require the provisions of care services, which is why if you're reading the development agreement, the words like may provide are used instead of shall be provided. So to help support, though, the intent of what has been proposed and the use of shared housing with special care, the development agreement focuses on providing adequate indoor and outdoor amenity spaces. The floor plans in this case have been attached to schedules to the development agreement so that when they do come in for the permitting, they have to, generally be consistent with what is shown on those plans to try to ensure that that intent is provided. HRM also does have a definition for shared housing and shared special care that was placed into all the HRM bylaws at a regional level when those amendments went back through in 2023. And the development officers do have a strong interpretation of what they are looking for when these come in at that permitting stage to meet that intent of shared housing with special care. Now, with that said, if in the future for any development, if there were concerns that it was not operating as what is permitted to do under the development agreement, certainly a land use bylaw complaint could be made and it would be investigated further to ensure that it was meeting the intent of the development agreement, which is not for multiple unit dwelling, it's for a shared housing special care facility. Sorry, I'm just going through the questions here. So in terms of the future, I think was the question, like if land changes, how do we keep this here? So a development agreement is attached to the property, not the developer itself. So regardless of if the property changes hand, there's a section in all development agreements that talks about future owners and how it does live with the property itself. Now, it doesn't stop, let's just say a future developer, if this ever were to get not developed and sold off, from coming in and asking for that to be discharged and potentially, building as per the underlying zone or seeking another form of development. If that other form of development wasn't just as per the zone and it was through discretionary plan application, a very similar process that we've gone through here today would have to occur and would require council approval. In terms of the on-site wastewater system, so as part of the plan applications, we are at a preliminary level when we have plans submitted to us. So we have the site plans, we get preliminary servicing schematics that are submitted. And in this case, we did get a preliminary servicing schematic that was submitted. It showed, a general location, kind of a size as to what they felt that buyer retention, that like those on-site services needed to be. It was done by a qualified professional that said, here's what we think it is. But again, it's on a preliminary level. The detailed work hasn't been done yet. So, following tonight, part of the requirements of the development agreement is that at the permitting stage, all of those approvals from the province, because this is under the jurisdiction of the Nova Scotia Department of Environment and Climate Change, that they have designed this accordingly, it meets the capacity, and they have all their appropriate approvals in place, will have to be provided to the development officers in order for like a building permit to be issued. Now, in terms of the grave sites and how I'm assuming you're curious about, or you're wondering about, one, how do we ensure these are protected, and what happens like if something is discovered?
Right, and how is that enforceable?
Right. So the monitoring of cemeteries and archaeological impacts are outside the jurisdiction of the municipality. They are regulated by the Cemeteries and Monuments Act, as well as the Special Places Protection Act, and they are a matter between a property owner and the province. Now, it's not my area of expertise. We have done some looking into this when the grave sites were discovered and had several conversations with the province. So it's my understanding that if as part of construction, there is something that is discovered, that this is reported. If there is any violation, it's reported to the province under the Special Places Protection Act, and the province would need to investigate to determine what would need to occur as part of that. It is, sorry, just one sec here. In terms of protection of that and how is it enforceable? So again, it's not HRM's jurisdiction. As I mentioned, the charter is very specific on what we can include and not include in a development agreement. So we can't include the requirement for an archaeological resource impact statement to be completed. When we did do those site visits, the coordinator for special places has requested that an archaeological monitor be present on site when construction is occurring. Now, again, it's not something HRM can enforce underneath the HRM charter through the agreement, but that has been provided to the applicant. They were on site with the site visits and are aware that that is something that they are looking to do. What we have done is in the development agreements, we have put in that site non-disturbance buffer. So on the back side of the rear of the properties at Front Montague, it's very clearly defined, and same as along the driveway. The driveway is the area of the property that's not previously disturbed, as such as on the other side where the driving range is, which is why the coordinator for special places was very insistent on that an archaeological monitor should be there on site. The development agreement also requires that prior to anything being done on the site, that non-disturbance area has to be delineated with markers and provide the municipality to show that it has been done and that they will be staying out of that area.
Okay. And can I ask a?
I think I know. Are there any other questions?
No.
I have one, but
Okay. Just on the archaeological monitoring request by the province, is that just for the previously undisturbed space of the entryway, the driveway, or is that for the whole construction zone of even the part of the land that has been previously
Disturbed? Yeah.
disturbed?
Yeah, no, through the chair to the councillor, it was more expressed to be when that driveway is being put in, because again, they felt there was limited risk as long as where the actual shared housing special care facility building is located was all within the land that was disturbed. They felt there was more of a limited risk in that area. It was more of a risk where the driveway is located because that land, it's not disturbed. And so they could find something that's potentially, we don't know that information yet. So it was more around when that driveway is constructed to have someone on site for the monitoring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, with the indulgence of council, I'd like to ask some questions just here from the chair. Okay, thank you. So a couple of questions. It's private, it's a private enterprise, but the coordinator for special places is there. I just want to reaffirm that this facility and this special care is still regulated by the province around service delivery, and it is not?
No, it's through you, Chair. It would be a privately owned and operated.
Privately owned and operated, but do they not have some kind of regulatory approach within Nova Scotia? Because I know there's been other privately owned facilities that didn't necessarily provide the care that was intended, and it became very public, and things changed around that time. So it's been a while since I've sort of delved into this. So this property owner and whoever is delivering the service on their behalf, there's no checks and balances for the special care piece?
If you share, it's my understanding that where it's private owned, private land, private development and owned, that they don't have, there isn't. Now, the applicant might be able to speak to what they intend to do as far as when the development kind of is up and going and with the care services that they've indicated they intend to provide.
Okay. And subsequent to that, so then there is no public money from the Department of Health or long-term care going into this project?
Not that I'm aware of, but again, the applicant might have more information kind of on how the operation of the development is intended to.
Yeah. Okay. And the other piece is around the unmarked graves and the cemetery space. Is this space, how did we get awareness of it? Is this space Mi'kmaq ancestral? Is it African Nova Scotian that's identified it? And was there a collaboration with the community leaders around identifying what area they think is included there? How can we say this area has graves?
Thank you, Chair, through you, Chair. So this was identified by residents of the African Nova Scotian community. When we were at the April 2024 public information meeting, it was one of the concerns that was raised is that there were grave sites that were located at least on the adjacent property, unsure of whether or not that kind of went over into the subject property. When we had that follow-up meeting in March of 2025, again, that was reiterated again very strongly by the community that they do feel that, you know, the grave sites are here and there was concern over this. So following that meeting, the meetings that we had on site included the coordinator for special place with the province. There were members of the African Nova Scotia community that were there with us when we did some walkabouts to determine and to investigate if the grave sites were located there. Myself was there. There was a representative from HRM's African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team, as well as the applicant and the developer were also there. So during those two site visits, we walked around with the coordinator for special places, and they had an archaeologist there as well. And so through history of talking with the residents that were there with us and through just visual, you know, inspection of the lands, they were able to determine that there were grave sites that were located here on that adjacent property. And so what the coordinator for special places indicated to us is that typically once and this wasn't identified ahead of time, this was identified as part of this process, like it wasn't something that the province had flagged. Once a cemetery is identified, it becomes a cemetery. It's protected under the Cemeteries and Monuments Act. And typically a 30-meter protection buffer is placed from the edge of any identified cemetery. In this case, due to the existing golf course use that has already been built during the 90s and how disturbed the land was, the coordinator for special places felt very comfortable of reducing that setback on that side to just where it was that the disturbance kind of on this side, not on this side, to ensure that nothing that wasn't already previously disturbed remain undisturbed. But if more development was happening that had already been disturbed on the site, there was that limited risk. So that was the determination by the province. In terms of the driveway, because the land is not already disturbed, the province recognized that if they applied the 30-meter protection buffer, like off even just the property line of the adjacent property, that access to the site would not be feasible because the access piece of the site is less than the 30-meter buffer. And that to try to obtain access from a different point into the site could be limited or restricted and could cause some difficulties. So the coordinator felt that, the items that they needed to feel comfortable was remove the 4-unit dwelling, have that driveway be pushed down as far south as we can get it to still allow for the construction, to ensure we were providing more of a buffer than what was originally proposed, and the requirement to have a monitor there on site so that someone is there to watch what is going on.
Okay, and thank you for that. And just one last question. And based on that conclusion and that determination that this is a good place to land, was the community of African Nova Scotia, are they in support of this as well? Is there an acknowledgement that this is not, they've landed in a good place? Okay, the question really is for staff, and we can ask you questions
Through the
later.
chair, no, so this was a negotiation that was done between staff and through the developer to land at where we did. The community weren't a part of those negotiations, those conversations.
Yeah.
So they were present on site, as it was their land to identify where the grave sites were.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All right. We will now move to asking if, just one second. So I've reviewed the rules. So now we move to, this is the open public hearing, and we will now invite the representative of the developer, Jennifer Sang. Is that how you pronounce it? Sang? Song. With Sunrose Land Use Consulting, and you don't have a PowerPoint, but Roger Boychuk, Transportation Engineer, is available to answer questions as well. And can you identify Roger? Okay, Roger, thank you. You can stay there unless we need you to come forward. So, Jennifer, I'm going to allow you to address council now, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, councilors. My name is Jennifer Song. I'm a planning consultant for this application. As you've heard tonight, the proposal is for an active seniors housing that offers special care. For years, residents expressed a desire for seniors care housing to be located in the suburban area of HRM. This was so that people wouldn't have to leave their home communities and move downtown or to an urban area if they needed to live in a seniors care facility. HRM made this possible in 2023 when they amended the planning strategies and better defined special care housing. As part of this process, as staff has previously explained, we met on site several times with members of the community and the coordinator of special places from the Provincial Department of Communities, Culture, Tourism, and Heritage. This created a proposal that is designed very specifically to recognize the site conditions with input from area representatives and the provincial cultural experts, which included the Senior Curator of Archaeology. The care building is situated to minimize its impact on the surrounding lands by being at a lower grade, having significantly larger setbacks than what would normally be required, specifying non-disturbance areas, and maintaining existing vegetation. The building layout has been redesigned several times to better fit with HRM's expectations regarding what a care facility should look like. The proposal is designed following the Rick Hansen Design Guidelines, which is dedicated to creating a world without barriers. They are a leader in designing buildings and outdoor amenity areas that focus on accessibility and reducing barriers so that they are safe, beautiful, and multi-sensory. We are requesting that Community Council please approve entering into the development agreement, and we are here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Jennifer? Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so I'll just list my questions. How long has this land been in the developer's ownership? Do you know? Second question, why does the project need 6 stories and 125 units? Were other options evaluated at 3 or 4 stories, and why would those have been rejected? Wastewater. So what wastewater treatment technology is proposed? And can you provide examples of similar sized facilities in Nova Scotia operating successfully with comparable servicing arrangements? Blasting. Do you expect blasting to be required? And if so, what commitments will the developer make regarding pre-blast well testing? Because I believe there are some wells in this area. Post-blast monitoring and compensation if impacts occur. And then traffic. I'm wondering, the traffic impact statement found minimal traffic impacts. And I'm just wondering what assumptions were used regarding staff numbers, visitor trips, delivery vehicles, emergency services, shift changes, residents. How did they come to that conclusion? And then regarding the burial sites, will the developer commit to archaeological monitoring and immediate work stoppage if unmarked graves or artifacts are discovered? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. I think I wrote them all down. So your first question, I think, was how long has it been in the current ownership? I don't know the exact answer, but it would have been when prior to the golf course being built. So I think at least 20 years. Oh, 25 years, I'm told. This is our engineer, and he'll answer the engineering questions. Your next question was about the 6 stories. So yes, we looked at a number of designs. So when in determining the appropriate size of this type of care facility, you have to look at a number of things. We looked at the property shape, the grades, the size of the property. We looked at the building design. So we have care offered on all of the floors, as well as 45% of the ground floor. So one of the things, so if we had a shorter building, the footprint would be larger. So the footprint is larger in terms of the building itself. The residents living on the floor have to walk farther, travel farther to get to the care location. And so when you're designing a care building, you have to think about these kinds of things. The other thing is where the building is placed is actually approximately 15 feet lower in grade than the homes that are nearest. And so that allows the building to be lower. So it has more of an impact of a 4.5-story building than a 6-story building on a residential property. And as you know, residential zoned buildings can go up to 35 feet, which is 3.5 stories. And then also having a smaller footprint and at 6 stories than if it were shorter, that allowed us to have quite a large setback. So our setback, the building setback from the property line of the adjacent residence, is actually 77 feet. Now, typical setbacks are 20 feet, as you know, or sometimes half the height of a building if it's a multiple. So if a 6-story building, half the height is typically 30 feet setback. We're actually at 77 feet, which is actually greater than the full height of the building. So we were able to achieve this quite large setback, plus a non-disturbance area. So the trees that are there will remain. And with the lower grade. So a 6-story building was reasonable under these site conditions. And it made the floor plan work nicely for providing the care. So that is why we landed on 6 stories. In terms of blasting, yes, of course, each room has a blasting bylaw, which has to be followed. There has to be an experienced professional blaster who it has to be on site and undertakes the blasting work and gets the permits. It includes pre-blast surveys and monitoring. So we'll follow that bylaw very closely, as we have to do. So we're required to do that regardless. In terms of the burial sites, yes. So the way the act works under the province is if anyone in Nova Scotia were to come upon a burial site, even if you're digging in your own backyard, you have to stop immediately. You're required to stop immediately and contact the province. And so that has actually been written into the development agreement, even though it's not necessary to be written in. It's more to alert everyone to the fact that is the rule. If anything's found, stop immediately. And we are, yes, we are aware that the province has the right to come on site anytime. And they've said to us, we want to be on site during construction and periodically. And so, yes, of course, they're welcome. And we will actually inform them of the timing of starts and things like that. So we have a close contact. They know how to reach us. We know how to reach them. And I'll let Roger answer your engineering questions.
Good. I think I'm turned on. Madam Chair and Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak here. And just, I think I have 2.5 of your questions to respond to. I think on the blasting side, we're hoping absolutely to minimize that. Any construction project, we're going to not blast if possible. And we know there's certainly some ground level there that will allow us not to have to blast. Geotechnical work will be required, which will further define what we encounter underground. And if we can break it, if we can bring in just machinery to do that, we would absolutely prefer to do that. In the case where blasting would be required, as Jennifer mentioned, there's a pretty strict bylaw and pretty strict set of restrictions that we have to go through for approvals and to do that, including groundwater monitoring and adjacent buildings and photos and all that stuff to ensure that and prove that there's no damage associated with that. So we're hoping to avoid it, but if we do, we'll certainly follow protocols very strictly. I think the wastewater is, and just as a really quick background, there's an existing wastewater disposal facility there right now that deals with effluent from the golf clubhouse right in that area. So it's pumped over and it's in a standard approved disposal field. As part of this development, a second disposal field would be put in, but I think the key and the preliminary information as HRM staff had mentioned, the initial plans required at this stage are preliminary, so they identify advanced wastewater treatment at a specific facility, not just straight disposal. We've looked at a number of different versions. Suri Yakamuran, who does the real details on this, isn't here tonight, but we've had a good conversation. And what's been thrown around would be something like the Waterloo sewage disposal system, which is well recognized in Nova Scotia, used at many locations. There's established installers and throughout. We've got a small list of some of the installations, but it's a common installation, and it's defined as a fully enclosed advanced treatment wastewater system, which deals with a lot of the wastewater and then disposes much cleaner water to the disposal fields. So, and as part of this proposal, the existing effluent that comes from the golf course over into just a straight disposal field is actually being rerouted through the Waterloo or similar type of technology. So it'll actually be a step up in terms of what's being discharged from the development overall. So certainly, if any follow-up questions on that, happy to answer. Maybe just to address the transportation, we did prepare a traffic impact study, and I just want to differentiate between the statement and the studies. The statement is kind of a couple-page letter that says, hey, we looked at it and everything's good. The study is a much more in-depth study where we look at trip generation and all those pieces. So we did do a study for the site. We did traffic counts to understand what was happening on Montague Road, trip generation for the special care facility. We always err on the side of caution to usually have a higher volume coming in and out of the development than anticipated. So we use those numbers, and what we found in the typical and in the past bunch of studies that they tend to overestimate what's coming out of such facilities. So at the end of the day, we expect what's in the report. We expect the traffic probably to be lower than that. Shift changes are always the big one, as you referred to, which typically almost always happen in these kind of care facilities prior to the road AM or PM peak hours. So they tend to offset each other on purpose in many cases. So from a transportation and vehicles, sort of day-to-day vehicles, we saw very, very high levels of service. It would be a stop control driveway, and we're not expecting any level of service challenges or issues at that location. For things like service vehicles, emergency vehicles, again, those are sort of intermittent and not high volume, but the turning radiuses and can they get in and out without causing. So as part of the preliminary design, we generally make sure that's okay, but prior to the permitting process, we would do truck turning templates and make sure that all the design vehicles can get in and out without impacting existing traffic on Montague Drive, other than what would normally be expected from those turns. So from a traffic perspective, the study found that no, this was there's nothing that caused issue. Site distances are fine from a safety perspective. Operationally, it'll operate fine. I think the biggest one was probably the transit. There's that gap between where the building is in transit, and as everybody's referred to, the intent there is to have a sidewalk connection between the facility and that transit facility, which is just down on Lake Loon Road. So that would satisfy those connections. So I'll leave it at that, and certainly any more questions, happy to respond to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? The proponent? No? Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to the speakers list, where members of the public will be given 5 minutes to address this topic. When I call your name, you may come forward and up to the microphone. Please begin by stating your name and the community of which you reside in for the record. Please refrain from debating points expressed by others speakers. Keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to myself as the chair. The clerk will hold up a yellow sign when you have 30 seconds remaining, and when your time is complete, the clerk will hold up a red sign. I'll allow you to finish your sentence, but we can't let you go on, and this could be a very long night tonight. We've got a lot on our agenda. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I'll call 3 times to make sure that there are no lingering additional speakers who have just made the decision to come up. So you have 3 shots at the end of it. So at this stage, I have a speakers list. It's short, but I have a Sherry Bernard and Crystal Mulder. Those are the 2 that signed up in advance. And are they in the room today? Okay, good. So you're up, Sherry. You can come forward, please, and have a seat, or go to the mic if you prefer to stand over at the podium. But it's nice to be able to see your face here straight in front of us.
And it also has a smile on it. My face also has a smile on it.
Yes, it does. I see that. It's always pleasurable.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I live in my name is Sherry Bernard, and I live in Lake Loon, only about probably about 2 houses from where this proposed development is. A couple of points I want to make are, one, I'm not exactly sure, I didn't really get a good sense of what the speaker was saying about shared
Shared housing, special
housing.
care. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's a senior's home. So I was at the meeting in April, and I was the one who raised the point that there were graves there. And I'm not sure that they have gotten or they saw all of what was there. I lived in that community for my entire life. We knew that community, like the back of our hand. So we have not been consulted or we had not had a meeting with the developer or the private owner, even though I personally asked for one and was denied that. That Lake Loon is one of the 52 African Nova Scotian communities, 52 Black communities. And I think that HRM should also be very aware before they agree to something like that the developer of any kind should always consult with the community. He would have went, if he had consulted with the community, the finding out about the graves would have been, he would have known that going into the meeting in April. But because he refused to meet with the community, these are the kinds of things that occur. And I don't believe that, even though I heard part of the presentation, there are a lot more issues that have to be addressed before any kind of agreement can be voted on, in my opinion. There are, number one, I don't think the the building that's being built is not anything that we have ever asked for in our community. I heard somebody say that that was something that we'd asked for. Our community is part of what is happening over at Akuma, who have consulted with our community. They have a long-term facility going in there. That's part of our community. And our community has been in touch with Akuma, been invited to their meetings and so on, where they're developing a long-term facility. And that's been ongoing for a couple of years. So when that argument about the community is asking for that, we have never asked for that. But we have been part of what's going on at Akuma. The other thing is that our community definitely needs to be consulted before anything happens. And I also would like to have the HRM be very aware of the 52 Black communities. I don't know if you're aware of where they are, but if that gentleman back there will stand up, he's got the sweater on, he's got the 52 Black communities right on his back. So there is, and you can also find them online. They're online. They're available at the Black Cultural Center, but the community is opposed to this development and they want to be consulted. And they are aware of a lot of where the graves are and a lot about the community that this developer has not even considered. He was asked, and his words to me were, I don't have to talk to anybody. I got the message. However, I'm sure the next speaker will have some things to say with regards to the way the community feels about this proposed development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sherry, if you could just stay there, I have a feeling, I think Councillor Manzini's squirming in the seat here. I think he's going to have a
I'm
question.
sorry. Go
And I have a question as well, and perhaps there may be others. So just
Okay.
before you make the effort to get up.
No problem. Go right
Thank you
ahead.
for speaking, Ms. Sherry. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You had some questions, and so some of us will ask those of the applicant. But you said the community is opposed to the development, so I'm not clear. What's the opposite? I realize they haven't consulted with you, but what's the opposition to what's being proposed?
Well, initially, we were aware that the graves were there.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is, first of all, we weren't even aware that he even owned this property. So there's questions around that as well, how he obtained this property. And those are some of the questions I know you can't answer, but we would like to ask them to the developer. And I think that he has a lot of misconceived ideas of what he can do without any knowledge of the community or the people that are in it. And we oppose anybody coming in, and what he's trying to do is go between two homes, two Black family homes, and build this development, and hasn't even spoken with the people who own those two homes. There's just so many things right off the top of my head that I mean, like, those are the ones that are coming to me now. But there are many reasons why. And this community was established in 1700s. So the community's been there a long time, even to the point that at the end of Lake Loon Road is where they house the Maroons, because they were not allowed in any other community because they put them in the Black community. And the Black community is not being, I don't know if HRM is hearing their voice. They do have a voice. They do know the land. We have cultivated this land. And one thing about the Black community, we are not transit.
Mm.
We stay in our communities, and we know the people in the communities, and we know what's where in the communities. So, those kind of issues are things that we needed to talk to the developer about.
Okay.
And by the way, we also know that Lake Loon is on bedrock. So there will be blasting. So whomever is responsible for that needs to be prepared for their insurance right away. So,
Okay.
we know the land, we've walked the land, we've worked the land. For example, my family have been in that area for over 100 years. I tell you, we know the property, we know the land, and Montague Road is where I've lived the majority of my life.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Sherry.
you. Anything more for her?
No, sir.
No?
Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
You're welcome.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So you're saying that you did not, the developer did not engage with you. Did you
Correct.
attend any of the were there any public engagement meetings that you could have attended? Did you attend those?
There was only one
Okay,
that was in April,
okay.
and I did attend
You
that.
did attend. So at that meeting, was there a representative there for the developer?
Yes, the developer himself was there
Okay,
at that meeting, and I spoke to him directly.
okay. You spoke to him directly. So, and because you did say you did not talk to the developer did not talk to you.
I
um,
asked him at that meeting, and he told me he didn't have to talk to me.
I see. Okay. And did you talk to any of the, like, for instance, Jennifer, who is here, is she, did you have opportunities to talk? She, as a representative of her? No. Okay, thank you.
No.
Okay, so thank you.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
Counselor Purdy has one.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Counselor.
Sorry, Sherry, keeping up here for a while.
Yeah, okay.
So at the April meeting, and that's what staff kind of talked about tonight. So that's where the grave sites were brought up for the first time. And then after that, I believe there were community engagements and there were site visits and everything. So I don't know, maybe when staff comes back, we can ask what the parameters were for the people who attended those site
There
visit
wasn't
meetings.
so many people.
Mhm.
It was, I was there.
So there was consultation then, and
There
when you
wasn't-
walked the land.
I did not walk the land
Right.
with them.
Okay.
I ran that land when I was a kid, so I knew where the graves were.
Right.
But the thing is that being not far, a few houses down, I saw that they were there, so I just walked over
Okay.
to see what was going on.
Okay.
And I recognized somebody from HRM who was there, as well as the developer, who I know, and just kind of, said, and the owners of the home was there. And I
Okay.
believe the guy who's the president of our community association.
Okay.
And I believe that was the extent of who was there. And at that point and I think there might have been another visit that I didn't go, but that was the point of where they were just sort of finding out, getting information,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sherry, I think it's okay for you to go back to your seat.
Okay, you sure now?
Well, I am
Okay,
sure
thank
this
you.
time, yes. And a call upon Crystal Mulder.
Good evening. Madam Chair, through you to council. My name is Crystal Mulder, CrystalMulder. The facility that Sunrose Consulting is talking about building is actually behind my home. A home that I have lived in for 50 years. A home that my parents purchased 50 years ago and raised their family in an area where my mother grew up, in an area where my mother played, where my grandmother grew up and my grandmother played. I know that community like the back of my hand. And I can tell you, where Jackson Field is, which is the graveyard, is located on our property. and beyond. Far from my house was a church, which served the graveyard of Jackson Field. The graveyard is actually larger than the few graves that we were able to locate. This is why we need an archaeological study of that particular property. Our ancestors moved to that neighborhood, moved to that land. And in fact, didn't even move. They were placed on that land in the 1790s. Not because they didn't want to live in downtown Halifax, but because racism in this province forced them out and into rocky, barren, unusable land. We thrived, we survived, and we're still there. Do I want to see a 6-story building behind my house? No way. Absolutely not. Do I want to see a roadway next to my driveway? Absolutely not. When I hear talk of a traffic study, you know, I was late getting here tonight because I got stuck in the traffic on Montague Road that's only going to be affected by one car, according to the last traffic study tied to this project. Not gonna, that one car ain't gonna, no. That study is incorrect. I have lived and driven on that road for the last 40 years. I know better. The amount of traffic on that road is astronomical. There has been absolutely no consultation with the African Nova Scotian community, with the residents of Lake Loon and the residents of Montague Road. The only consultation I got, if you want to call it that, was a notification from the owner who showed up at my door to tell me he was building a road and a home behind my home. And that was the last I ever saw of him until the public meeting in April. And then at the public meeting in April, he didn't speak. He did not present his case. He did not consult with the community of Lake Loon at all. And we have representatives. We have the Lake Loon Cherry Brook Development Association, and we have the Road to Economic Prosperity that could have been with us. But no, he chose to ignore the African Nova Scotian community and to allow this kind of disrespect for people who've been there for 300 plus years is unconscionable for any council to engage in that kind of willful neglect of the Black community. To hear that he's building sidewalks. We've been asking for sidewalks for 40 years. We have asked for sidewalks for 40 years. We're finally being told we're getting sidewalks in Lake Loon, but we're going to have to wait a couple of years more. We've had children hit on Montague Road by people driving too fast, using their cell phones, and a complete and utter disregard for safety for residents. I'll just say this. We have a method which with HRM can consult with the Black community. But I will say this. While we pat ourselves on the back during Black History Month and praise how well we do in HRM, Halifax, I'm going to tell you, your anti-Black community racism is showing.
Thank you, Crystal. We have a question or two for you.
Uh,
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I missed the piece. Did you say the church was on this property? Or
Yes, there was a church on that
there was a
property.
church on this
Yes.
property too. Okay, thank you for that. Thank
You
you.
can't have a graveyard without a church. At
At
least not in that
That's
time.
what I
Let's-
kind of thought you were saying.
Let's
Thank you.
remember, we're talking the 1790s when we weren't allowed to into any other church. We had to build our own. Same thing with graveyards. We had to build our own. The first Black Nova Scotian to be allowed to a graveyard in Nova Scotia didn't occur till 1935 in Windsor. So you know it wasn't happening in Lake Loon.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. So were you not present at the site walking? Was that not your property that they were walking on for the site visit?
It was my sister's property,
Was
yes.
You're okay. Were you present at
Yes, I was
those
present,
ones?
yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing two different things though here. I'm hearing that there wasn't consultation, but and I'm hearing that there
No.
was consultation. So when you say what type of consultation would you like to have seen? What
I would like to have seen a full archaeological study of that area because we know that the graves are unmarked. I don't want to wait until my ancestors are dug up.
Okay.
That is the most disrespectful thing. We don't dig up anybody else. Why are we digging up the African Nova Scotian community?
Okay. Thank you.
Can you, any further questions from anyone else? So with your indulgence, I will. Sherry, I see you waving, but
Crystal.
I see a gentleman waving from the back, but the questions don't come from the audience. I'm sorry. If that's, you can speak when I call so it's an opportunity for you to do that then. So Sherry, I just want to help. Sorry, Crystal. Sorry, I have this little list.
It's
Crystal.
okay, she's my neighbor.
I need to understand the part about the property ownership of the where the grave sites are. So that's in the Mulder family. It's always been in the Mulder family.
No,
It's
the land actually dates back to 1790. I'm not sure who the
Yeah.
original owners were.
yeah. Oh, sorry,
But we
since
do know
1790.
that our next door neighbor was the descendant until she passed away of the original owners of that
Okay.
property.
And so again, to help me understand it, there was a church.
Yes.
Are you suggesting that the church was within that space, or was
Yes.
it on the golf course space?
It was within, well, the golf course space would have been part of that space. You understand, I need you to understand something about the driving range of the golf course. It's unprotected. I have had numerous golf balls hit my home over the years. And it is actually it actually is part of Jackson Field as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so so that okay, I'm just trying to piece these pieces all together.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I suspect I'll hear others. I appreciate hearing the history here today.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I have no other speakers on the list, so now I will call 3 times to see if any additional speakers. If I get through, yeah, just 1 second. Let me do my thing. Because if I get to 3, we're done. At any point, while I'm doing 1, 2, 3, you speak up, then it resets the clock and we start 1, 2, 3 again. All right, so are there any additional speakers who would like to speak? Please raise your hand. I will do my best to follow the path of the hand. So I see the gentleman in the middle and then the lovely lady to his right. Again, reminder to state your name and your area that you live in. And you have.
It's a little low, but okay. My name is Anthony Riley. I live on Montague Road, 416. Not very far from where this actually is looking to be done, this whole presentation that we're here talking about tonight. So I'm going to try to talk about a couple of things that kind of raised my awareness tonight. I wasn't at the first consultation, April 24th. I was hurt that night. I was unaware of another second consultation, but I'm also the president of the Lake Loon Sherbrooke Development Association for the last 4 or 5 years. So I was there at the grave site. We went that day and went through the whole walk and everything. But I was unaware of a second visit. It wasn't given to the association to come to a second visit. I can honestly say that. That's one thing. I'm also unaware of the fact that this border, when we first started this presentation, the first lady was talking, there was a line created between Lake Loon and Westfall. So I also am aware that maybe back 7 years ago, there's a presentation right behind Gateway of what's going to transpire there at one point in time. There was supposed to be a 7-story building there with underground parking as well. So is that why you're calling it Westfall now? Because we're in that same hub? Is a line in the middle drawn somewhere up Montague Road? Because you were saying that Westfall, the creative site that Mr. Archie Hattie is trying to put together is in Westfall, and there's a line between Westfall and Lake Loon. That was not said today, right?
Okay, so just so you know, we can't answer questions specific from you, but what we can do is hope that counselors who are on our seats here could take that up on your behalf a little later.
Okay. I have a couple more questions. So the sidewalk itself, I guess that's going to be paid for by the developer, correct?
Mhm.
I think so. So is that on both sides of the road?
Well, again, when
Mm.
staff come up,
Okay.
the staff and the developer will have the opportunity, or the representative of the developer, to address some of the things that are coming out right now as well.
Mhm.
So we'll make sure that that answer is given.
The action plan meeting of African Nova Scotia, they haven't been meeting with the Development Association, to my knowledge, that I can recall. So that really hasn't taken place. So I'll just make one more point about the crosswalks. If there will be sidewalks, will there be a crosswalk there similar to what's down at Montague Estates? Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a question from Councillor Austin.
Thank you. I just want to know, are you the current president of the Lake
Yes.
Louise? So does the association itself have a position, or are you speaking as yourself tonight?
Well, I'm just
If
speaking.
you get what I'm trying to drive at, right? Like, is this the association of a
Well,
position?
the association, which a few members of the association has already spoken tonight, and we're not in favor of this development.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mancini?
Mr. Riley, again, I asked the same question I asked Ms. Sherry. You're not in favor of the development. I understand there's a lot of questions, but what's the primary reason you're not in favor of the development?
Sometimes specifically because there's been other developers, shouldn't say developers, but other gentlemen, uncles of mine, who have tried to develop properties on the same street before, and they were always denied. Then all of a sudden now we're fighting, something else is coming into play, and that's having an opportunity. And there's other development that's down past me as well on 416 Montague Road. My uncle was doing a thing probably less than 10 years ago, trying to develop in there. And there's a water commission sign right across the street from me where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And that would never happen. And all of a sudden it's happening. So we're just trying to, reserve our community as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Mhm.
Welcome.
And would you like to come forward now? I don't know your name yet.
My name is Janice Grant, and my issue is short. I just wanted to address specifically, well, two small things. One is the big thing. The big thing is traffic. So I'm not sure where the numbers came from, but I can tell you it's underestimated. I live about 500 or 600 feet from Crystal, in that land where they're going to do the development. There are days I retired from my job, so I'm home most days. I retired in 2019. Some days, depends on the time, it could be anywhere from 13 to 20 cars go past my gate while I'm sitting there before I even get a chance to get out. Since they started the construction on the Main Street, which just, they're doing some work on Main Street right now, cars are in place there from the lights up the hill past the church. And that's waiting. People come, Montague Road for the last couple of years has been used more because people think it's easier to just go through Montague Road. So it's created more and more traffic. So that's why sometimes people like myself who are trying to get out of their yard, nobody's being courteous. You just have to sit there for 13, 20 cars or whatever to go by, and then you get a chance to get out. So there's no small amount of traffic on Montague Road, and it is increasing. So just wanted you to know that. So what I see with this development is it's just going to be outrageous. Even it's going to be worse, way worse, because you're going to have construction. You're going to have big trucks moving back and forth, just like at the new development that Acoma is doing. And you're going to have to wait. So this is what we're looking at on a main thorough road that goes to number 7 highway. So when that traffic gets backed up, it's not good. So this is what I see. And not only that, somebody was speaking about, you're going to have to blast. My grandfather was a blaster for the city of Dartmouth in his days. And where I am, my home was damaged already a little bit by blasting being done. So I'm just saying what happened to me and what I see each and every day in my community with regards to traffic. So whoever was doing the traffic, talking about the traffic, I can tell you it is not true. What I'm telling you is there's a lot of traffic, and sometimes you can't even get out of your own yard on Montague Road. So for a big development to come and be there for however many years, 2 or whatever years they're going to be doing that, it's going to be worse. And that's all I want to speak about.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to start the countdown again. Are there any further audience members who would like to, or public members who would like to present? Are there any further speakers? That's number 2. Are there any further speakers? Okay. So now we will ask if staff or the applicant representative have any comments to make as a result of some of the comments that were made from the public. The applicant would be the first side. Is there a will over there? Thank you. And just to be clear, this would be the point where councillors also could ask for clarifying questions to the applicant around some of the questions that were proposed or put forward earlier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, I took some notes here. So yes, the 2 site visits were coordinated by the province and HRM. It was our understanding that a lengthy number of people were invited and informed about the site visits. And certainly we went with the expectation that there would be representatives from the neighborhood, from the community, and we were anticipating having any kind of conversations as we walked on the site. So certainly I was not at the public information meeting. I can't speak about that, but certainly for the site visits, we anticipated to have conversations and that there would be that a number of representatives were invited. That's what I can tell you about that. In terms of an archaeological study, so the way the province normally does this is, and I'm sure you're aware, sometimes they will suggest that HRM seek archaeological I forget the initials, but it's a study, and you've seen that in some of your agreements. And basically, it's a desktop research report that a researcher and experienced historian writes, and it may involve site photos, and it may or may not involve a site visit. What happened here is much more than what the province would require as a study, where we had the senior curator of archaeology on site, the coordinator of special places. Twice they used measurements, they used GPS, they explained to us how they determined whether there were graves and where they were. And so this is a much better, 2 visits that we were there for hours, over an hour each time. So they are confident. We have to rely on them as the experts now. And as we talked about earlier, if anything is found, then activity has to stop. And we know that. And I guess the land has been surveyed and registered, the property boundaries, and oftentimes people don't realize there's a piece of land between them, but that's been there for over 25 years. So, and I'll turn it over to Roger to speak to the traffic.
Yeah, maybe to appreciate the opportunity to speak again. Appreciate the comments from the public as well on and just to put it in context, I live in the Craigburn area, and I spend a lot of time at Coal Harbour Place. So I'm not going to profess to live in the community directly, but certainly travel, and certainly faced with the challenges of Forest Hills extension as it meets Main Street. And I'm not going to vaguely try and sit up here and say that there's no traffic and that's not a busy area. I also won't say that traffic occasionally / frequently / depending on conditions on the road network, we'll use Montague Road as a shortcut route from when the line the queue comes back on Forest Hills extension. So certainly respect that. Yes, there are periods where it's can be challenging. The keys to the traffic impact study, there's I think one key distinction. One is to answer the question of what impact does the development itself have on the road network. And earlier comments where I said that the relative impact in terms of this specific development being seniors in nature, being a care facility with off-peak hour typical trips for shift, means that the number of vehicles coming in and out of the development are quite low relative to any of the other streets. So the study talks about about 20 to 30 peak hour trips, which is probably high, but if we go with the 20 to 30, so 1 car every 3 minutes or 4 minutes. Coming on and off of the road network. So that isolated piece means that the development itself has minimal impact in safety and operational. We can make that happen. 2, there's a bit more of a regional impact that yes, there is traffic like there are on many of the HRM streets, and I know the city and the province now are quite active on trying to solve many of those issues in that area, particularly the Forest Hills Main Street intersection. There's all kinds of things, and there's some positive things. As much as I hate to say there's positive from congestion, there are a number of developments happening in that area, and so transit has been quite active and quite interested in looking at some solutions in that area. There's more active transportation. There's a whole series of things I think regionally that are happening that are aiming to do things in that area, because it isn't a great situation. So yes, we have to factor, we take the development itself, which has very little impact. We take the regional perspective, which yes, there can be improvements there, as there are in many locations. And I think we're all aware of those. So we talk about many of those sort of the differentiating pieces in the study for those things. Oh, sorry.
Thank
apologies.
you. Councillor Mancini has a question, and you can come in after. Thank you.
Roger, I wonder if you could just talk about the process of the traffic impact study. And for everybody listening here, I've been at this, 11 years now, more or less, and I've yet to hear any community agree with the traffic study. Right? And so that's fine. That's our prerogative not to agree with any kind of a study. But can you explain to people, you're putting your engineering name on this, right? How that works. Like if you're building a building and an engineer says this building is safe, they sign off on it. And that's their reputation on the line. So there's always debates about, well, the applicant and the developer is paying for the study, so they're just saying what the developer wants. I just wanted to, if you could just explain the that's your credibility on the line. You're signing your name as an engineer and you're doing the studies. If you could just explain that at a high level, please.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. I guess maybe as the intro, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've got my name signed and stamped. As you know, professional engineers need to stamp their work, and your reputation and potential liabilities are associated with that. So, so we do take great care in what we produce, and what we produce is based on the HRM has a guidelines for the preparation of transportation impact studies, which we follow to as close as we can to a T, and address the pieces that are required through that. And we use industry standard guidelines to help us guide things like trip generation. What would we typically expect from a senior facility versus a regular apartment type of complex? And we use Transportation Association of Canada guidelines, for example, for site distances to ensure that intersections operate safely. So that's all documented fairly well in the report about what we do. We certainly feel, we certainly experience the busyness, and there's a reality and there's a perception in almost all circumstances. Right. And it's not to say that we want every driveway and everything to be just free flowing that you can move. There's often delays associated in urban areas. We try and mitigate that. Where we see in these reports that there is an undue level of delay or problem, that we would try and identify and say, hey, something needs to be done to mitigate that. We do talk about things like traffic calming and shortcutting. When those things happen, yes, larger scale implementations sometimes get done, but no, appreciate it. We signed it, we stamped it, and stand by our.
Yeah, I just want to make sure folks, there's a professionalism to this, whether we agree with the numbers or not, but they're following a process. One more question, if I may, Madam Chair, and this is for you, Ms. Soul. I've heard a number of the people that spoke talk about a refusal of the applicant to meet with them. Can you speak to that? I realize you met with folks, but the actual owner of the property refusing to meet, which is always a flag for me, to be honest, because I look at good developers always willing to meet with the community. So there's two sides to every story. So I just want to hear your side of the story.
Well, I wasn't at the PIM, so I can't speak to what happened there, but I can say that the two site visits, we understood, we had the expectation that community members would be there. And so we were prepared to have conversations at that time. As you know, HRM's procedure in developments are, the public information meeting or some sort of public consultation that the developer would have had his representatives at the PIM who would have presented things and answered questions. That would have been Fathom Group were there at that time. So his representatives were there and would have made themselves available to talk to the people during the meeting and after the meeting. And so that normally happens, and then the public hearing happens. And so sometimes a developer may have their own consultation. Sometimes they don't. There's pros and cons. Sometimes it's encouraged. Sometimes it's frowned upon. Council is a deciding body. And so it's always a bit of a judgment call. And it's like I said, there's pros and cons. And so the developer, we did not have a private one-on-one separate meeting, but we did, like in terms of organized in a room, but there were two site visits, as I said. And it was our understanding, and I have emails that say all the people that were invited, they could come or not come, and we were prepared to have conversations then. It may have led to another meeting, but we didn't go out of our way to hold another meeting because we knew these two site visits were happening, and it was about one of the biggest issues the community had, which was about identifying the graves and the potential of graves. So, we feel that was really important, and we did that, and there were two of them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Purdy.
Thank you. Can you clarify where the sidewalk is going? Is it on one side of the street, on two sides of the streets? Do you know if a crosswalk will be part of that plan? And I don't know anything about blasting. So can you tell me have blasting technologies improved over the last, blasting technology is a staff? No, but I'm asking about the technology behind blasting, not the HRM policies, the technologies to ensure safety of surrounding infrastructure.
I'll address as best as I can, not being not being a blaster or certified blaster I'm assuming, yes, like in most things, technologies have advanced. On the other hand, we still see the same rubber mats and we still see the same blasts. So if I had to speculate, which I don't particularly like to do in situations, I don't know how much it's advanced as opposed to rules and regulations respecting how it's carried out and the protections that the public are afforded. I think have certainly progressed. There's been very few blasting related challenges just because inherently it's a bit of a dangerous activity. So most contractors will overcompensate for any challenges, any risks that might be present on that, just from a blast and rocks flying or from adjacent properties. That's to my earlier comment, though. We'll probably try and avoid it. If the rock is fracturable, they'll probably pursue that. With respect to the sidewalks, yeah, there's been for the DA. There's a bunch of you just sort of do preliminary. It's not the detailed design stage that goes to permitting before building permits, but we have done a fair amount. To Archie's. The developer has taken that to sort of heart. So we have to do it. So he had engaged us to do a fairly significant amount of work in terms of evaluating which side. In that is the answer. Yes, it would be down one side, like the rest of Montague Road, would be a continuation of the sidewalk. We've spent, so further as you move down towards Main Street, it's on the one side. Yeah. So we looked at the properties and the impacts of putting on one side. Is there safety or particularly safe or easier to do on one side or the other? And we've made some preliminary recommendations on that. Our understanding right now, and I think it's still between the developer and HRM, exactly how that gets implemented. But it would be on the one side, and we've identified a bunch of issues suggesting it probably goes on the same side as it is for most of it, which then does mean the preliminary plans that we've put together would include a crosswalk. Again, and almost identical, as best I can say, to the one that's existing a little bit further down the road would be the intent.
Thank you. Did you get all your answers? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I just want to circle back to the archaeological piece where you referenced that normally like it would be a desktop type thing, but this was a higher level. I missed the detail as to how, when they were out, what do you actually do to identify a grave? Like, I'm not an archaeologist, so I don't understand, what this kind of higher level is and what that actually looked like, right? Was it like ground penetrating radar? Is it just kind of like using, like what?
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Chair. So I didn't know anything either, and I learned a lot. And so having the two experts on site, they actually talked to us and explained to us what they look for. So how they explained it was, first of all, they don't want to disturb the site. So, no one's lifting up rocks and looking for things. So, but they look for indentations they identify the natural ground just with their eyes, and they're super knowledgeable. So they've done this many, many times. They know what old grave sites can look like. So there'd be a dip in the land. And they look for placement of rocks. There's not always an obvious tombstone, but they've seen that there can be placement, and sometimes it looks like it's in a formation, and they compare it to the natural rocks and ground around. And if it appears that it's been placed, even though it may have moved over time, and sometimes there might be a more significant marker. So there's sometimes stacks of stones, or again, a specific orientation. And if they can identify a number of these factors and notice that it's in a sort of concentrated spot and not around the surroundings, and we walked all through a lot of area, that's how it was explained to me. But when you talk to them, they know. They're like, yeah, I've seen this. They've done this throughout the province for decades, so they know what they're looking for, and it's very important not to disturb the site, but they're as confident as they can be that, without actually digging up anything, that there's a strong likelihood that there are graves on the adjoining property. And we looked very very closely along the property line to see if it had potentially straddled the line and come on the existing site. And it was clear that that had not happened. It was just inside the property line of the nearest residential property. So they looked very closely for a long time, took measurements, came out a second time. That's the most I can tell you, but it was educational and fascinating.
Mhm. Can I ask, the area that's developed, did I understand that correctly, that it's already been disturbed in the past?
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So because this land is part of an original development agreement that's been there for over 20 years that allowed the golf course creation. And so as it was discussed earlier, this particular part of the golf course property, which is much larger, has a septic field that serves the clubhouse. So that the land was disturbed, it had been dug and the septic field was put in. So that's when the archaeological people said, okay, this has been disturbed, this is what the septic field is, and there's some grading. You can see that work had been done on the property that meant that there wouldn't have been graves when that happened, because they would have been alerted to that fact. But the idea was that if it's already been disturbed, there's no grave there now, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, and it is in relation to the same vein. The information that you received on the archaeological, I call it eyeballing of what's there. You were there, they talked about it. Was that all verbal, or did you get any documentation from these folks that is captured in a file or something that's here with you now that is something that could be released to the public? Because I think that's a big area of concern. And I just wonder, was that all verbal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mean from these experts from the
Yes.
province? I have a couple of emails. What I have is mostly verbal, but my understanding is they would have written something. I mean, they expressed their thoughts to us on site, both HRM staff, ourselves, and the community representatives that were there. I suspect that they may have written something to staff, because staff would normally consult with all the affected departments. So they may have something in writing that describes it. And they also may have reviewed the draft development agreement where staff had written the clause in. And so you'd have to ask staff that question. I don't have a report per se myself. They didn't give me one because they were really consulting for HRM. They were giving the information to HRM, what HRM was seeking, and we were invited as being a stakeholder, essentially. So the documentation is probably between them and staff.
And so tonight we heard a number of iterations of concern that there is a larger space that does house graves. Concern that the community historical knowledge was not in part of the informing of that particular exercise. Does that help you understand that there is still maybe more to do? Would it be gaining? Would you have heard anything new tonight that would cause you as the representative for the developer to take that back to the developer and have a conversation around maybe we need to do more?
Having those two people on site, we went there with the full expectation, like, let's explore this entire site and find out where these graves are, because people had said that it's extensive. It was a little vague, just extensive. It's everywhere. So we said, well, let's look, let's try to find them. And so we had the experts on site. I have to trust them and their knowledge. But as I said, we looked at that closest property where people said, well, we know there's some here. We looked along the property line all the way beyond that property. And they also looked on the other side. The archaeologists looked the exercise was to determine if there were any graves on the developer's property, number one. Number two, were there on the nearby properties and the placements, so we could figure out what proper approaches could be taken to protect those graves from the development. So I'm satisfied. I mean, they were very thorough. Now, if there are more graves elsewhere in the community, it could be elsewhere, further down the road, farther away. But in terms of the property line, the adjoining property line, I'm quite satisfied. They were extremely thorough, and that was the whole purpose. But wasn't to find all the graves in the community. The purpose was to find where are there graves on the property or adjacent to the property, and what context and proximity, and trying to define that and we have the top experts in the province were there. So
Okay, thank you. Any last questions for developer? Thank you both very much for coming up. Would you like staff to come forward as well? Yeah, please. Just to clarify, we've asked staff to come up to respond to some of the comments that came through the public representation. And then after that, I'll close the public hearing, and staff will then have an opportunity for us to potentially ask anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So making some notes of some of the comments that we heard, and if there's anything that I've missed, please let me know. There was a question that came up in the beginning regarding like the use and for seniors. Just to provide a bit of background also for the residents who are here. In 2023, when the region-wide shared housing and shared special care amendments went through, the different plan areas throughout HRM had different language. Some was residential care facility, some was senior citizen housing, some was nursing homes. The intent of those amendments was to create more of like a unified term, definitions that apply to the municipality as a whole. So does it mean that this use could encompass a senior citizens housing development? It certainly could. That would be kind of up to the operation of the development that the developer chooses to do. There was a question regarding the name of the plan areas when I was speaking. I can't speak exactly why that plan area is called Cole Harbour Westfall. I believe that dates back to the 90s with amalgamation when the plans were all created. I'm sure Councillor Hensby can confirm that.
I can answer that one.
When all the plans were created and they were named. I mean, I understand like we can't put every community name on each plan area. It would make them very long. We'd be here for a very long time saying the names. But I think the name does go back quite some time to the amalgamation of municipality. I believe that the sidewalk piece was addressed. Again, the development agreement points to our municipal design guidelines as far as the standard that has to be met through. There are requirements that has to be approved by the HRM engineering, that it has to be in place, taken over prior to occupancy being provided for the building. Again, there's been some iterations that have preliminary design that have been done, but no final design has been done. But the intent would be for sidewalk on one side. And then in terms of the questions we were just having with the archaeological visits and a report, there's no formal report that was prepared. The original site visit occurred, so we had the public information meeting in April 2024. In May of 2025 was when plan applications and our HRM African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team hosted a meeting where this application was discussed a fair bit. And so after that meeting was held, one of the representatives from our African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team reached out to the province, chatted with some property owners as well as the developer, or the applicant, sorry, to arrange that meeting on site. And then I was also, as part of the planner assigned to the file, was included as part of that. I do believe there were a few residents that were involved. I can't speak to why, maybe who was involved specifically for that invite. And then the follow-up meeting that occurred was more, we had to go, the archaeologists had requested to go back to site to take some measurements. We wanted to confirm exactly how far that non-disturbance buffer needed to be so we could ensure that it was captured adequately within the development agreement, so that we knew where to put the line and what to put in. And I think that's it, but there was no formal report prepared, but there would have been some emails back and forth confirming like the distances in the site non-disturbance that we included in the development agreement. Oh, of whether or not there'll be a crosswalk included as part of. So my guess is, not the one guess, but that there would have to be a crosswalk somewhere. The preference has been shared that we would prefer for the sidewalk to be on the side that the existing system is, so to continue that all the way. So where that exact crosswalk will be placed is unknown at this time. They'll have to do a detailed design and determine from a safety perspective where the best place will be for that.
Okay, thank you. I've been advised by people smarter than me that I should close the public hearing now. So I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we will go to each member. Yeah, do we need to extend our meeting as well?
Well, it's not 10 o'clock yet.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, time is it now? Okay, we'll finish this. So I know Councillor Hensby, did you have a question of clarification?
No, just a commentary.
Oh, no, so that can wait.
No,
And
about the
we'll-
land use,
yeah,
municipal planning
yeah.
strategy.
I know, but that can wait until you use up your 5 minutes on it. I think we now need, if we've closed this, we now have to put the motion on the floor. Okay, we need a motion to close public hearing. Thank you. Yeah, me too. I thought that too. Okay, so did you move to close the public hearing? Thank you, Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Purdy. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Okay, we'll now have a motion to extend this meeting. We'll not put an ending on it at this stage. We still have a lot to do. Seconded by Councillor Hensby. All in favor, say aye. And those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Okay, so we need a motion to put the staff recommendation motion on the floor. Okay, questions for staff? Okay. Not normally in the public hearings we've been involved in. Questions of clarification. Yeah, not to be combative, but yeah. What's that?
But you will be.
But I will be, not combative, but just disagreeing on that one. Okay, so is there anyone who has a question of clarification? Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. So I just wanted to clarify, going back to what was in your initial presentation, there was a reference to planning going on in African Nova Scotia communities. Is this an area, like, is the long-term thing to do like an actual kind of more area type plan in this community?
Thank you to the chair of the councillor. Yeah, so under our HRM African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team, they have started work with a couple different communities, such as Upper Hammonds Plains and Lucasville, to work on that action planning, to develop new bylaws for developing future land within those communities. My understanding from speaking with them and looking at the report that would have been in front of council in late 2024 is that full action hasn't, like the visioning process hasn't quite started fully with the Lake Loon community yet, but there's been some early feedback that have been provided to that team. And the intent would be, yes, that all of the African Nova Scotia communities throughout the municipality will go through that process to develop their own action planning and visioning.
So I guess my question from that would then be, from a staff perspective, why are we advancing, a project of this kind of scale, scope before we do that work?
No, great question. And through the chair of the councillor. So while there has been like direction from regional council to do that work with these communities, staff still have to implement the policies that are enabled today in the plans, like the land use bylaws, as well as the municipal planning strategies today. So very similar as of right development. So any permit that might come in on any land within any African Nova Scotia community has to be reviewed and approved or refused based on the regulations and the policies that exist today. So until those changes occur, we still have to continue on with what is in place.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarification from staff, for staff? Hearing none, we'll now ask for the motion to be put on the floor. Thank you. Chair, thank you.
I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council 1 approve the proposed development agreement which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated May 22, 2026. And 2, require the development agreement be signed by the property owner within 240 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, this appeal will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end. So moved.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mancini.
Thank you.
Councillor Purdy.
Oh dear. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks to everyone who took the time to come out tonight, and especially to those who shared in our public participation. I want to acknowledge that residents have raised significant concerns regarding the scale of this proposal, traffic, the presence of nearby grave sites, and the broader question of whether a 6-story building fits within the character of the Lake Loon community. These concerns are legitimate and deserve serious consideration. At the same time, we must also consider the purpose of the proposal and the planning policies that council is required to apply. This development would provide 125 units of shared housing with special care, a form of housing intended to support seniors and others who require additional care and assistance. Staff have identified a need for this type of housing and concluded that the proposal is consistent with the existing municipal planning strategy policies that specifically allow council to consider shared housing with special care developments through a development agreement. The proposal includes features that go beyond a conventional apartment building, including significant indoor amenity space, accessibility features, community gardens, physiotherapy and activity spaces. It also requires a new sidewalk connection to improve pedestrian safety and access to transit, infrastructure that would benefit both future residents and the broader community. While the building is larger than nearby development, the agreement includes generous setbacks, buffering, tree retention, non-disturbance areas, parking controls, and requirements intended to reduce impacts on neighboring properties. It also includes provisions to protect known grave sites and require provincial oversight regarding archaeological and cemetery-related concerns. Ultimately, the question before us tonight is not whether the project is perfect, nor whether every resident supports it. The question is whether the proposal reasonably balances community concerns with the broader public need for housing and special care services, and whether it meets the planning policy framework that we need to consider in our decision. So based on staff analysis, there seems to be a reasonable planning basis to conclude that it does. So if this is approved tonight, it will be really important that the developer follows through on the commitments made during this process and continues and engages in the future respectfully with the Lake Loon community as the project moves forwards, depending on what happens here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should have asked this of the representative of the applicant, but I wonder if staff can help me with this one. I'm still not clear also, as many of the speakers are, what the facility is. And we keep hearing the same description, but is it a senior's home? Is it for those with disabilities? I mean, can someone answer that question?
Yes, Jess.
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair, to yourself. Unfortunately, it would be more of a question for the applicant. The term shared housing with special care is defined as being residents who have cognitive, physical, or behavioral limitations. That could be adults or teens, that could be senior citizens. It's not defined as far as the people who could occupy these spaces. So it would depend on how the developer decides the operation of the shared housing with special care use.
And it's just, so stay put, if you don't mind, Josh. The archaeological study, where when we have situations, does HRM request that? Does it get flagged with the province and the province makes a decision on that? When is that put into place? When can it be asked for? Is there a requirement, or can we in fact ask for it?
So thank you through the chair to the councillor. So as part of a discretionary plan application, we do what's called team review. And this happens bi-weekly. And we have representatives from internal, such as like HR engineering, land development, our African Nova Scotia Action Planning team is there. We also have Halifax Water, and the coordinator of special places who visited the site visit with us attends those meetings with us.
Okay.
And so at those meetings, we present the planner on file will present the application. Here is what has been proposed to us, and then we ask who would like to review it. And many times I can say that the coordinator of special places reviews most of our applications.
Okay.
However, as I mentioned earlier, the HRM charter is very specific on what we can require within our development agreements.
I understand.
And as we cannot require that the developer complete an archaeological resource impact assessment, there are always advisory comments
Right.
from the coordinator of special places that they recommend where they feel appropriate that one be done. But unfortunately, it's not something that HRM can enforce. It's outside of our jurisdiction.
No, I understand that. Can we request them, or
We can,
Yeah,
and
we can.
it was through this application recommended that one be completed.
But one wasn't.
To my knowledge, one has not been completed. We've just had the site visits.
Okay. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And just a comment on this file, it is rather difficult. There's history in this community, and there's a lot of generations of family in this community, and it changes the community. And so we hear these kind of comments all over HRM. When I looked at the applicant, and unfortunately the actual owner of the property is not here, I don't believe. But representative, you are. Oh, well, I look to you, sir, and I say, meet with these people, regardless where we are today. Have a conversation. I'm sure Ms. Sherry will have a cup of tea. No, I'm just, I'm sure Ms. Sherry will put on a pot of tea and have some conversation with the community, face to face. When I look at good developers in our community, we have many of them, and I'm not suggesting you're not a good developer, sir, but good developers will sit and listen to the people. It may not be the end result that the community wants, but to listen to them and look them in the eye. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. And so this one is tough. I look at like some of what I've heard tonight, and it's not dissimilar from many public hearings we've had here, where nobody likes the large project going into their neighborhood, the resulting traffic impacts that happen. That's something we grapple with, I think, in many projects and proposals that come through here. And you got to balance that along the other kind of public good that Councillor Purdy talked about here in terms of housing need and the need for these facilities. But I don't think I'm going to support this one tonight, and I'm not going to because for me, the scale of this is significant, and I just can't get over the fact that we've got a historic Black community here, and one of many throughout. And I think, in the context of our planning and decisions that have come before, we as government have historically marginalized people. There's a lot of planning processes that resulted in things like, I think about the avenue in my community, in my district, where, where was the stone crusher in the Black community? Where was the dump in the Black community? Where did the paving end? At the last white person's house on Creighton Avenue. And I think when you weigh these things together, we've got a greater duty than just whether or not neighbors want something big built in their backyard to sort out, what is the community's vision? What does the community want out of development in their area? And I don't hear that work has been complete. And so to depart from what is there at a level and scale of this, I'm not comfortable in doing on this, so I'm not going to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Hensby.
Thank you much, Madam Chair. To give you folks a bit of a history lesson on the municipal planning strategy over the Lake Loon Cherry Brook area as a part of the North Preston East Preston Lake Major municipal planning strategy, which was the very first one in the county to be done because of City of Dartmouth coming out and creating the Lake Major watershed. So with that watershed creation and impact of the local adjacent community. So back in the mid 70s, I started the Joint Action Committee to review the community boundaries. Those community boundaries are set by the community. And it's odd that there's a cluster of black families there along the Montague Road was included in that boundary line. So that's why the boundary line fronts along those properties in that particular area along Montague Road. So the back lot, so those properties were part of the community. But on the other side of that line was the Cole Harbour Westfall plan. So that's why the driveway portion access to that property is within the Lake Loon development zone, but the rest of the properties in the Cole Harbour Westfall plan. That was adopted by after 14 years of consultation. I remember delivering the notices when I was a paper boy in the Lake Major area. That goes back in the late 70s, early 80s, yes. But anyway, this was finally adopted by the county back in late 1992, and then approved by the province in 93. So it's the first municipal planning strategy of 23 in the municipality at the time. So that's where the historical aspect of that came about. In regards to the planning issues, not just the African Nova Scotia community planning office, was also this is going to be part of the suburban plan review, this particular area. So there's going to be two planning processes going on at the same time for this particular area. But in regards to the assisted living situation, I'm quite familiar with the development going on at the Coomer properties in regards to long-term care facility. This is a facility that is just below that grade in regards to servicing. Basically, people can have the ability to live by themselves or with a significant other, but they may need some assistance from time to time, be it for cooking, be it for laundry, be it for whatever the case may be. Those are things, what they call assisted living, that there is some independency there, but they need some from time to time to make sure the meds are being taken, wellness checks are done and stuff like that. So there's usually a trained personnel living on the site with that. So that's why the termination what's called assisted living. So I think that facilities like this are going to become more and more common than they are now. So, but as we move forward with this particular development, in regards to the height of the building, it was talked about the design of the building. Trying to narrow the footprint of the building means you have to go higher because you don't want to have people walking that far within the building for the assisted living care issues stuff. So it was ergonomically designed for that purpose. So the narrower the footprint, the higher the building is. We see that going on downtown in the metro area with the center plan. To go higher, they shrunk the footprint of the building to go higher. So that's what occurred here. So I believe that the project has some good merits to it, and I'll be supporting the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini, for a second time.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just I wonder if you can come back again, sorry. A lot of questions around blasting. Can you explain in simple terms the process, please? When blasting is required, what happens beforehand, the monitoring, the videoing, if something is found, that's required. We have strong rules around that to protect the neighbors. If you just explain that to folks, I think that's important.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, the councillor, I will do my best to explain, as it's like an engineering bylaw, but I will do my best. So first of all, the development agreement always includes clauses up front that do require that regardless of what's written in the development agreement, all of the municipal bylaws have to be followed, which would include the blasting bylaw. So if the developer were to choose blasting on here, they would be required of the development agreement to follow the blasting bylaw. So my understanding is that there is like a pre-survey that is done, which includes existing wells. And I do understand, even though we are in the water only service boundary, there are still residents here who do have wells and are not connected to municipal services. So the kind of survey blast that has to occur where that's identified and within a certain radius, I think, depending on
They're
how.
surveying actual homes or going to actual homes and looking in their basements, that type of thing.
I'm not sure how detailed the survey is, but I do understand there is like an investigation done on the condition, I know at least for like the existing wells and homes. And so there's a report that's done by a qualified professional. It's submitted to HRM Engineering, I believe, for review. And then blasting will go occur, all the proper permits are done. And then following blasting, there's also like a post survey that has to go get done. So all those wells, that, for example, that are in the area that would have been looked at they do look to ensure, like, was there damage? Was there something done as part of this? And then my understanding is that, like, depending on the outcome of that would be what the next steps would be by the municipality and the developer would have to take.
Thank you. I think it's just important for folks to have that valid concern to understand that. My last question, if I may, it's more of a legal question. This is appealable, is this correct? So could you explain that to folks? So whatever the decision is tonight, if it's to move forward with the development, then people have the opportunity to appeal it. If we turn it down, then the applicant has to turn it. So you explain that to folks, that'd be very important.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor and to council here tonight. Any development agreement of this nature in accordance with the Halifax Regional Charter is appealable to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. So following whatever decision is here to made here tonight, notice will be posted on the HRM website, which sets out the right of appeal.
Once again, I just want to make sure folks have all the information in front of them. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions or, sorry, considerations for comment. I would like to offer some. Should I move out of the chair to do that? State my view on, I can speak here? Okay. Yeah, so councillors, if that's okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I guess, that in general, I think that this kind of, I'm going to call it a facility, housing, whatever is called, is a gap in Nova Scotia. It's a gap, and there's a lot of communities who would be looking forward to having something like that. And no doubt, I don't say no doubt. I think that I'm not here to say whether or not the community would benefit from it or not, but in general, senior citizens, adults, children with special needs, people with needs for care. It's abundant in our province, and it's abundant here in Halifax, but also we are in the middle of a housing crisis, and there are folks that don't fit the traditional, can get an apartment or a home and stay in a home and things like that. So in general, I would normally look at this from that perspective. I am concerned about some of the things that were brought forward this evening. You know, I am here to, and I, as the chair, I spoke to the importance of 400 years of history of our African Nova Scotians and the importance of their community and culture. And we have debated, not debated, but we've had conversations in council around the importance of doing better in those regards, to engagement, to understanding the needs, the wants, the gaps, and those sorts of things in community. And while we have made some progress, I think we can acknowledge that we have a long way to go. And I'm worried that that's getting captured here. When I think about the statements I make, and I make them as a chair, and others do in other committees, we believe in that. And tonight does not feel comfortable for me to accept that really has been put forward in this particular application. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that our staff didn't follow all of the rules and the policies and all the considerations that they had to do. They may very well have. I do have concerns, though, around, and this isn't the first time I've come across it. Councillor Mancini noted that there are developers who are really, really good at engaging with community and go the extra step. And I'm one of those councillors that will always ask, if I have the chance to talk to somebody who's doing a development, whether it's an application like this or as of right, talk to the community. But in particular, our communities from African Nova Scotian descent, there's a lot of historical knowledge that comes from those, and we have some healing and some effort to do to reconcile that, I think. I'm disappointed, to hear things like the developer wouldn't meet with them, they wouldn't speak to things, don't have to do archaeological assessments, those kinds of things. And then to find out that the developer's actually here in the room and is hearing that as well and is not doing it. that bothers me. Does that actually qualify for a reason for me not to vote for this? Unfortunately, according to the legislative authority that we have and the policies that staff have gone through, there are layers to this that we have to stay within to vote against it or to vote it down. But I am like Councillor Austin. I'm going to go right to the places where we do have the right to say vote against it for a good policy reason. I have concerned about the traffic impacts. I have concerns around the fit to the community. So the scale in that particular area. The archaeological significance here cannot be overstated, in my opinion. Anytime we're dealing with unmarked graves, we have to take it very seriously. And if I recall correctly, Jess mentioned that it was recommended that one be done. And in this case, the applicant basically said, no, they didn't do it. They chose another version. I think that's a misstep. I think that for me, when I add all these pieces together, I can't support it. Do I think that you could probably benefit from this kind of housing? Absolutely. But is this the right one? In this form, is it the right one? And have enough things been done to make sure that the community, their voices, their history, the knowledge that they have around some of these really impactful things is met. I think it's not at a level that our municipality can support, certainly not me as a councillor. And yeah, I won't be supporting it for those reasons. And I'm not sure where things will come after that. But thank you very much. All right. Hearing nothing else, shall we call the question? Okay, all of those in favor of
Sorry. So just, can I speak
Councillor
one more time?
Purdy?
Second
Sure.
time speaking for this. So just on some of the things I heard there, yeah, this is a tricky one. Okay, I'm not going to say it's a tricky one. This is a hard one. I know, right? Okay, no, it's
Question has been asked to be called. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion has been defeated. Thank you. We're going to take a break at this point. We have to take a break. It's a requirement of everyone in the room that they need an opportunity just for biology and such. However, we also want, it'll give this group of counselors an opportunity to make a decision about how long we're going to go this evening and how many pieces of this agenda we are actually going to reasonably think we can get through tonight. All right. So, well, I'm going to say biology. It's better than saying I have to go pee. Just saying. carry on until 10. We should be able to get the rest of this agenda through. It's a shame it's all taking this long, but you know, good work needs to get done. So we're going to keep going. And Bill's a little cold sitting there. He's frozen. Oh, he's got to go deliver milk. So can't have the milkman late. All right. So now we are going on to the second hearing, which is 10.2.1, a variance item VAR 2025 012928, appeal of variance approval for 95 Keyport Avenue, Eastern Passage, deferred from June 10th. At this stage, we will have a presentation from Matthew Lardner, the planner 1, Michael Hart, planner 3, and the development officer. Stage is yours. Are you all presenting? No. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And you are Matthew? Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Chair and members of Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council. My name is Jared Friesen, and I'm a planner with Development Services in the Planning and Development Business Unit. I'm here filling in for Matthew Larder, the planner on the file who couldn't make it this evening. I'm presenting this variance case number 2025-01928 at 95 Keyport Avenue in Eastern Passage. The property at 95 Keyport Avenue is zoned R1 under the Eastern Passage Cow Bay Land Use Bylaw. The applicant's proposal is to reduce the required side yard setback of 1.2 meters or 4 feet to 0.88 meters or 2 feet, 10.6 inches to allow the as-built placement of a 32 square meter or 352 square feet detached garage. Just a quick note to add here that the staff report indicates the proposed variance is to reduce the setback to 0.81 meters. That measurement has been slightly adjusted to 0.88 meters to reflect the up-to-date exact measurements provided by the applicant since this variance hearing, was deferred on June 10th of this year. The updated measurement is reflected in the presentation today. So the parcel highlighted on the slide in red is 95 Keyport Avenue, where the variance is being requested. So for some background, a building permit was issued based on information provided showing that the garage would be a minimum of 1.2 meters or 4 feet from the side property line. During the final inspection, the building official noted that the garage was constructed closer to the property line than indicated on the approved site plan submitted with the permit application. The applicant was advised to amend their permit to provide an accurate site plan demonstrating that the land use bylaw setback requirements were still being met. Through the review of the amendment, it was identified that a variance would be required to ensure the garage could meet the required 1.2 meter side yard setback. The outcome of this variance will determine if the garage can remain where it is constructed or if it must be modified to meet the side yard setback. Again, the applicant's proposal is to reduce the required side yard setback of 1.2 meters or 4 feet to 0.88 meters or 2 feet, 10.6 inches to allow the as-built placement of a detached garage. This is the notification area showing all property owners within 30 meters who were notified of the variance application. So the Halifax Charter requires variances to be reviewed against the following criteria. A variance may not be granted where the variance violates the intent of the land use bylaw, or the difficulty experienced is general to the properties in the area, or the difficulty experienced results from an intentional disregard for the requirements of the land use bylaw. In this case, the development officer determined the proposed variance did not conflict with any of these three criteria, and therefore staff are recommending approval of the variance. I'll summarize the reasoning behind the development officer's decision. The first criterion evaluates whether the proposed variance violates the intent of the land use bylaw. The intent of the side yard setback is to provide separation from neighboring properties. Side yard setbacks also enable buildings to be maintained by property owners without crossing over onto adjacent properties. Although the side yard setback requirement is 1.2 meters, a 0.88 meter setback should enable adequate separation for maintenance. The garage meets the front and rear yard setback requirements and all requirements of the building code. And the side yard setback reduction of 0.34 meters or 1 foot, 1.4 inches is considered to be minor relative to the requirements of the bylaw. It is the development officer's opinion that this proposal does not violate the intent of the land use bylaw. So the second criterion considers whether the difficulty experienced is general to the properties in the area. The properties in the surrounding neighborhood are of comparable width and depth. Although the lot at 95 Keyport Avenue is wider than the surrounding properties, it is encumbered by a servicing easement along the left side of the property line, as well as a drainage easement to the rear, which limits the usage of some of the land. This is unique when compared to surrounding properties. The third criterion is whether the difficulty experienced is the result of intentional disregard for the requirements of the land use bylaw. In this situation, the applicant applied for a building permit and made an error when preparing the site plan. It appears that the applicant was not aware of the actual location of the side property line, and there does not appear to be any intentional disregard of the bylaw requirements in this variance request. So, in a variance appeal hearing, council can make any decision the development officer could have made, meaning their decision is limited by the criteria provided in the HRM charter, which were shown on the previous slides. And there are two options before council. Council may overturn the decision of the development officer and allow the appeal, resulting in refusal of the variance, or council may uphold the development officer's decision and deny the appeal, resulting in approval of the variance. And this is the recommended alternative. So thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jared? I just have one, Jared. Can you just confirm one more time what that first statement was about going from 4 feet to 2 feet? And then when I see there was something in your presentation. Can you go back, put the slide up? I mean, I can speak to it more intelligently.
Absolutely.
So to reduce the required side setback at 95 Keyport Avenue from 1.2 meters, so the requirement is 4 feet. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
And instead it's going down to 2 feet 10 inches, 10.6 inches.
Yes, that's.
And so that's a difference of the 1.125 feet.
Yes.
That's what you're saying
that's
is
correct.
basically that's where it landed at the end. Okay, thank you very much. All right. No questions from council. Now invite the appellant to the microphone. I see we have 3 appellants, Michael Dara, Herbert Dara, Bill Dara, I'm going to call you Bill, and Patricia Dara. I don't see Patricia here this evening. I just want information from the clerk. Do each of them get 5 or is it 5 total?
No, that would be 5 minutes total.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak? Okay, Bill, go to the microphone, please. Over this one. Yeah.
Which one, this one, or does it matter?
No, just push that.
You
that-
sit there, Dad.
We'll close that laptop. Oh, that's your laptop. Okay, good enough.
He's got a presentation. You want to show him what to do here or whatever?
Yeah. This one.
We killed it.
So the TV's on too?
Yep, just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. You got the pictures. They'll come out in a second. You got her? Okay. Hi, my name is Bill Dara. I own the my wife, my son, and me own the property here. You can see some pictures here if you want to scroll through them. This is where the setback is supposed to be. As you can see, the garage is there. That's just taken from the property line straight down towards the house. And that fence that's in front of it, I could go to the other ones, Rick. Just a sec here.
Hang on.
Can you just clarify whose is who?
Okay, so this is the fence, okay? This fence here,
We're on the right-hand side.
this is,
Thank
our
you.
house is on the right-hand side, the garage is on the left-hand side there. This fence he put up here, this wooden fence, is 18 inches on my property. It's got 2 cement posts. It was put in, I'm gonna say 5 or 6 years ago when my son bought the house. I just left it there, never said anything, okay? The next thing I know, we'll go to another one, we'll show them across. This is behind the thing. It should have been like 4 feet back instead. This is behind the shed, go ahead, the garage. This is down my side of the place, the property. This is the little 8-foot piece that I have. I lost 16 inches of property. Not these proposals they say. Go ahead, keep going. There's a driveway in front of their house, and you're talking about the driveway that drives into it. He could put his trailer or his garage on the other side of the house where that trailer is there. Even though there's an easement, there's lots of room to put a garage. Okay, keep going. So this is where they put the garage. No, this is where they could. This is the opposite side of the property. This is where you actually see how much room he has to put a garage for this big property he has. He's got a bigger piece of property than anybody along here. Go ahead. So there's my piece. That's what I have left out of my 8 feet. 8 feet, 8 inches. I've got like a little less than 6 feet. Okay, that's on my property, that post. I could have taken that down a long time ago. I just left it there. So this is what the property guy, when they went to build, that's what they went for a measurement. That is not the property line. That is my fence was built 16 inches inside of my property line. Which is just, well, usually you put a 6 inches to a foot. This guy left because there's an easement down there for water drainage, I guess. I've got 3 easements on my property now. If I get another easement, that's 4 on my property. So go ahead and see what we got here. That's the last one. Okay, so I have some new pictures, but anyways, all this paperwork that I've got here, I've got 4 different measurements. The first one that was continued on July or June the 6th or 10th, it was 6 inches. There's 6 inches. Next thing they said, they canceled it because they found out it was 10 inches. Okay? No, 10 inches, they canceled it because of the meeting. You remember you guys canceled the meeting because it was 10 inches? Next thing you know, it's 13.6 inches. Then now it's 15.3 inches. So I don't know which one to go by. There's 4 different measurements there. Every time the developer or the guy who built it comes back, it's a different measurement.
They obviously couldn't measure to start.
And that nobody's been in to measure it off the property line at all because you can't get to the back of the property because there's a rose bush. It's probably bigger than that hole there. And it's 4 feet high. So they can't get to the stake to measure where it is. So that being said, that's 16 inches. That's what I'm going to lose when we get the property. Now, when they sent some new pictures, again, on the 10th, the last day before I could get this meeting and I couldn't appeal it or whatever, there's a picture taken from the roof. I don't know if you guys, they're going to show it on one of their pictures. You can't even see my fence when you're on the roof. It goes right by. Now, I have a solarium built on the back of the house over top of the deck, which is exactly, how far, Greg?
6 feet from the fence.
6 feet from the fence. So my insurance company, I was already talking to them, I am not covered if that thing goes on fire.
If the fire jumps from one to the other.
I am not covered. They're null and void. I'm out $500,000, whatever. I won't be able to claim it. Even if my house goes on fire and theirs catches, I'm liable. If the variance goes through. So the reason that I want the variance is because the property line, we can't afford the insurance. They said if I have to take the fence down. Because if any damage from the ice, and there was no mention about ice, I never mentioned it in any of the meetings or any of the paperwork. All of a sudden, they put these ice dams on the top of the thing. The ice dams don't stop ice. I've got a roof. If it slides down, it's not going to stop it. But anyways, everything's, like I said, there's no appeal for the easement at all because an inch, that's all it has to be is an inch over and it's null and void. And, oh, by the way, when we told them before they poured the first slab of concrete, my young fellow, this fellow here, and my other son behind me, I think you're too close to the thing. And he told them the mind is effing own business.
So that's kind of what I'm doing today.
This is what it is. This is why we're appealing what it is.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much. I do have some questions for staff, but that'll be later. Thank you. Any questions of clarification for the appellants? Councillor Austin has a question, Bill?
Well, I just, yeah, I understand that there's some dispute here on the property. When you said when you were referencing, like, if the variance goes through, you lose this. I mean, my understanding, we're talking about setback from the property line, reducing that.
Mhm.
How do you lose?
Well, I'm paying taxes on all that property. So if you give an easement on there, which you already gave me, I have 3 easements on my property. One down this side, one down this side, and one across the back, all for water. I don't know what it is, water drainage or whatever. He's got one on his other side. And I have another neighbor on the other side, and I've lost 4 feet of space on the other side because we built the fence 4 feet over towards my property to cover the easement.
The other guy was building the deck, we would have lost 4 feet if he would have used the property.
But the garage has to be on
It's
the other property.
Oh, I didn't mention that the garage doesn't have a driveway going up to it. So you have to cut a spot in the driveway for the driveway. All it is dirt. And if you look at the picture, right there, there's no fence up. A pool there for a full year in the backyard, okay, with no fence. I was told by somebody if I didn't report it, I was liable. Because there's a pool there without a fence. Next thing I know, a week or so ago, my young fellow had to call. Guess what? They put the fence back up. I've got pictures of it, but I don't. And it's joined right to my fence with a concrete slab buried in. But that fence right there, when you see it, is 16 inches on my property. With cement posts, and mine's a chain link fence, but it's on my property, 15 inches inside, but the property line goes like this on an angle.
Okay.
So
When he puts the fence across the front, we no longer can walk down.
we can't walk down and do any maintenance.
On our side.
I can't do that.
That's how we lose the 15 inches.
That's how I lose 16 inches.
Once he puts the fence across it, I can't walk down the fence. line.
Okay.
There's a fence right across there. There's no driveway. It's completely up, but I've got a picture of it, but I didn't get it. There again, I got all this stuff, July the 10th, I got this information. I worked till 3 PM. Didn't have time to send it in because you had to send it in by the 10th, right? All this information, and I didn't have a chance to do it.
Okay.
But I've got a picture on my phone if you want to see it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay?
Bill? So I understand what you're saying about the 16-inch losing it.
Yeah.
So are you saying that right now, you believe that that building is on your property right now?
No,
No, it's too close.
it's too close to my property line.
It's not
Okay, so
4 feet
how
from the water.
close do you think it is right now to the property line?
16 inches too close.
16 inches too close.
I have 8 feet, 8 inches going across from my house. I measured it out. So these guys, whoever they measured it, I don't know how they measured
The
it.
fence doesn't go straight back.
It goes
Okay.
on an angle
So
this
if
way.
you're looking, the fence comes in a little bit. So if the very front corner of
Yeah, I
of
see
that garage is closer
To the
to the
fence.
fence than the back.
part of the
Yeah,
garage.
okay.
But as the fence goes, it comes closer to under my property.
Yeah.
So like it's going back.
Show 'em that.
Let's say it starts at
No.
8 feet from my property or from my house. At the
Yeah.
very back, it's 8 feet 8. So it slowly
Goes out this
goes
way.
towards
The way
my
you can
property.
look at
Your
the plot
property
plan.
line does.
Well, yes, he's my son.
And his
And what-
garage is coming
what the-
closer and closer to it.
It gets, it's, I'm gonna say
They
third,
used the
third,
fence as a property line.
they
The
used-
fence wasn't the property line.
the guys, when
Okay.
my young, told him, he said, those stakes shouldn't be there. They hadn't even poured a slab of concrete, okay?
There wasn't even a concrete.
There
truck
was
on
nothing,
site.
there was on site. And my young fellow, like I said, one of them told him, he said, mind your own business. And the other guy said, and Michael said, the other fellow lives there. He said, it's not your property. It's none of your business. And he told them, because he works for a construction company. So
Okay,
they
okay.
knew that the stakes were in the ground, but there was no survey, no plot plan. I
I
never,
told you
never
that.
saw a building permit ever. I never, ever saw a building permit or, because I thought they were putting a slab down for a pool. That's all because there was never a building permit that I could see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Good?
Thank you, yes. There are no further questions from council. I would like to invite anyone who has identified that they are affected by the decision differently than the general public. speak why they're affected differently. Council decides whether to permit you to speak or not, and if yes, they can now speak for 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the gallery now that feels like they are impacted, but not the general public? I think you. Yeah, yeah. Following this, just 1 second. So the applicant, I'll invite you now to speak if you would like to. Yeah.
Sorry.
We need your name and.
I'm Kelly Hunter Perry. This is my husband, John Perry. We're the owners at 95 Keyport. So from our perspective, this is how things went. We hired Jones Co-Builders to handle applying for permits and building the garage to code in March of 2025. They completed it in August. We were contacted by the HRM development office in October, months after the garage was built. And we were told that it was built 34 centimeters or 13.6 inches closer to the property line than the spacing was allowed. So at that time, they said we'd have to apply for a variance. We were also told that they had the HRM office had erroneously told Jones Co-Builders that because there was a shed that was in that space previously, that spacing would be grandfathered in. At a later date after the garage was built, it came to light that the people who had owned the property before us had not permitted that shed. So they grandfathering the space was null and void because the shed was there without a permit to begin with. So due to the miscommunication between our HRM and the builders, I'm guessing that's why Jones Co. didn't say anything to us at the time. But basically we were not informed. So all I can say is that, if we would have known that there was an issue at that time, we want to be good neighbors. We would have insisted that they build it to code. We didn't know that there was a neighbor complaint about the slab, certainly not that you guys were told to mind your own business. We were not aware of that. We were told on June 10th, the day before this was supposed to be before council last, that there was an appeal to it. And that's when we actually got documentation showing that there had been a complaint issued. At that point, that was 11 months past the point that they had issued the complaint, was when we as homeowners were first made aware of it. So the complaint that we saw issued, the reason we put those snow dams up is the complaint that we saw issued stated that they were concerned about, snow and ice fall damaging the chain link fence or hurting children playing in the backyard. And, I'm a mom of 4 kids. That's, very personal to me if someone states that they're concerned for their children. So even though I believe, it's the pitch of the roof and an asphalt roof and it's an unheated building, I do believe that risk is minimal, but we put the snow dams up to mitigate, that as a concern. So this is also the first that I am learning that our fence is across the property line, and I apologize for that. We're certainly willing to move the fence. That's something that can be done relatively easily and without much expense. But the immense cost that would be associated with moving the garage, that would financially devastate my family. The estimates that I'm getting for that are between $6,000 and $15,000, and all of this was through no fault of our own. And I just don't have the money. I don't have the funds to do that. So given the fact that, we've done what we can to mitigate it, that we have, HRM has said that they feel that the essence of the bylaw is still upheld. I'm begging you guys to deny the appeal. I hope you can appreciate what an impossible position this is placed us in as the homeowners. And, you know, finally, I want to address you guys directly.
No, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
That-
realize.
Yeah, that's not appropriate for in this environment.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know,
You
I'm
can
very
speak to
sorry
us
that this
about what
whole,
you might like to say.
I'm very sorry that this whole process has happened. You know, this is not the type of neighbor that we want to be. We lived next to Pat and Bill in our previous home for 5 years, and then we've been here on Keyport for 10 years, lived next to Michael for a number of years, and, you know, this whole situation is just unfortunate. And without the immense expense that I just don't have the money could change this, I would. You know, I really just feel like we were let down by the builders. We were let down by the HRM permit office. We do have a couple of pictures here that just show, I don't know how we get this to come up. So just, sorry. You know, this is what Jones Co. sent us. They state that, you know, they're going to be responsible for upholding all of the bylaws. In an email with them back in March when we were first hiring them, we confirmed that, you know, it was going to be built 4 feet from the property line. These are the snow dams that we put up to try and make sure that we could mitigate any risk. Regarding the pool, yes, we were made aware recently that a storm had actually damaged that fence and brought it down. So we have put the fence back up, and we can move the fence if need be.
Okay, thank you. I think you're out of time. Are there any clarifying questions to the applicant? Just let me see my notes here. Okay, no, I think I have some for staff, so. All right, thank you. So now we would get to the point of what are the wishes of council to introduce a motion to allow the appeal. So that would normally be me, one of you guys can do it. The diagram by who? Jones Co. Can we see that again? Yeah, but thank you.
Sorry, can you clarify, is it one of the slides?
Sure.
Yeah, one slide they show. This one? No, one before. There.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to take the chair so that the counselor for the area can move the motion.
Yes, thank you. I have to move the motion. It's a hearing, so we have to put it on the floor for debate. That I would move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council allow the appeal.
Okay, go ahead. Would you like to
you.
speak to this?
I would like to speak to it. I'm just dumbfounded, to be honest. I am, I'm really concerned about two things. The concerns around insurance for the Darras and the concerns around the financial implications if it has to change. So I do want to ask staff a few questions around the property line piece. So can you come forward? It's the property line that seems to have been the kicker here. And I have concerns around the Jones Co. folks, but if they are the ones that involved with this, then perhaps maybe they could have been invited here. I don't know. I don't know if you have any contact with them. Yeah, they're probably not going to want to touch it like the 10-foot pole, but what's your name?
My name is Michael Hart. I'm the development officer.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. So, Michael, it seems like it's a moving target, this property line. So when you folks look at these kinds of scenarios, do you not confirm property line?
In this case, the original application for the variance was based on the site plan that was provided, or that was a location certificate rather that was provided that indicated that there was the building was built too close to the property line. The day of the hearing prior, when we requested that the hearing be deferred, it was the applicant, in this case Jones Co., that was providing us with conflicting information of what that distance was, which is why we asked that it be deferred, so that we could clarify with the applicant what that specific distance was. So we requested that a survey be done to delineate exactly what the distance the garage was built at from the property line. So that was provided to us on June 6th, or the survey itself was done on June 16th, and it was provided that same day to us as staff. So that's why the original staff report said 0.81 meters, and the 0.88 meters is the distance that was delineated by the surveyor. So that we know that is to be the correct distance.
So we know now
We know
it is
now
the
that
correct
it's
distance.
0.88, correct.
0.88, and that's with a qualified surveyor.
Yeah, licensed
Documented
Nova Scotian.
documentation was, how many meters is that? Inches,
I can do a quick.
please. Some of us still kind of rely on the inches,
That's totally fair.
unless I have a measuring tape.
Give me one moment, please.
Can I have some indulgence on some further time? Does anyone else?
Very
have
little
any questions?
indulgence. Does anyone else have, yeah, we do have other questions here. So maybe after this question, we can go to someone and you can come
That's
back.
34.6 inches.
34.6 inches, which is
Uh,
not quite 4 feet,
It's 2.9 feet.
2.9 feet, so just almost 3 feet. Okay. All right, my colleague has some questions. I want to come back.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So this is a mess, big time, right? I don't know how it's unbelievable. You know, it saddens me in this job that we have, how many times we see neighbors not getting along over stuff. And it's very sad that this occurs. I want to understand, maybe this is a legal question. If the variance is refused, then what's the action from there? Pardon? Yeah, what's on my hair? Is there a button?
She's not getting a mic. Here, speak into this. It's just flashing. Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the council. So you're asking if the
Variances
appeal
are
is allowed,
allowed.
which would deny the
Yeah,
variance,
yes.
then a permit.
Oh, hang on.
would-
everybody should-
Sorry, if we could just have the quiet in the, sorry, just so we can hear what's going on up here. Thank you. I know this is contentious.
Then a permit would not be issued for the shed.
So a permit would not be issued. So what happens to the garage?
Okay, just
Sorry, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
That would be a matter for HRM compliance and to go from there. Not knowing the full details of the property, what is built, what is not. But a
Oh.
permit would not be issued for that shed.
So the permit, the shed's already built. There's no permit for the shed now. So you're building it after the fact. You're asking for the permit. So potentially it could be, the directions could be to tear down the shed. Is there another alternative? We know of, Michael, can you help me out here? I'm trying to understand
Sure.
the ramifications of our decision here today on both
course.
parties. So if the variance is refused, means there's no permit being issued, then what happens?
So to go back a little bit, just to clarify,
Please.
a permit was issued previously.
Right.
So it was through, I believe it was the building official who identified the shortness of the setback that was built. So
Right.
that's how we came to the variance.
Right.
So if the variance is refused, the permit is no longer valid.
Okay.
So it'll be sent to our compliance division. and they will issue an order to comply, which their options may be to move the shed or garage rather, demolish it entirely, put it somewhere else. It's up to the property owner at that point. But at that point between the compliance officer
Okay.
and the property owner.
I don't know if anybody can answer this question. Does the builder have any responsibility in this, or does this become a civil matter
It would become a civil matter.
at this point in time? So we wouldn't have any influence or any direction we could give the builder, but potentially those involved could go to the builder for it.
That's correct.
Wow. Okay, Michael, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Go ahead, Councillor Austin.
Oh, there we go. I want to, sorry. I want to understand a little bit more of the staff chain of events here on the HRM side. The owners of 95, they hired Jones Co. to go out, build this garage. Jones Co. applies for a permit to HRM. They get a permit.
Yes.
But that permit was based on faulty survey information?
It was the permit was issued based on the site plan that was provided that demonstrated that.
Which didn't have the correct distance. So the development officer of the time said, yep, you're within the setback, and approved the permit. And then after that, it was determined that the distance was wrong. How did that happen?
1 second, I have this written down here. It was on July 16th, 2025, a building official performed an inspection and identified that the setback had been reduced from what was originally proposed. So it's not entirely uncommon for, especially when when buildings are proposed right up to the minimum setback.
So was the survey wrong, or did Jones Co. put it in the wrong spot?
I believe it was put in the wrong spot.
Okay. So it wasn't built where it was shown on that site plan.
That is correct.
And so then it becomes, okay, you apply for variance, and then you folks, what is there a piece here? Because there was reference in the applicant's presentation to a grandfathered whole thing. What was that about? Or did that?
I believe this happened at the building permit stage. I'm not sure if it was a building official, if it was a planner, but staff had mentioned to the property owner that there was a previous shed on the property, and that it would be considered an existing building, but it was later found that that shed did not have a permit. So if the original structure had a permit issued, it was built whatever distance from the property line closer than the current requirements, they could rebuild that structure. Where that original structure did not have a permit, wasn't legally permitted to be there, that existing building clause in the land use bylaw would not apply. So I think that's where the confusion was.
Okay. Talk about a mess. I mean, my inclination is towards, upholding the variance just because that's what the staff recommendation is. There's no good option here. And, in terms of the property line piece, I mean, that's really not our purview to sort out, right? Like the fence piece. Our question is really, is the garage variance a reasonable one for us to consider? And from that perspective, I think I'm going to go with the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Councillor Hensby?
I was trying to determine from the site plan or the thing that was proposed by Jones Co. was submitted by them. It does have a gravel base and a crusher dust floor, or so the garage is not affixed to the ground. It's just setting on a gravel base. There's no concrete there. The concrete pad, with the diagram doesn't show a concrete pad, it just shows gravel and crusher dust. So that was my little confusion, because if it's on a gravel pad, it can be shifted. But now since it's on a concrete pad, you have to unbolt it, lift it up, and shift it over. You pour a little bit extra pad and shift it over, yeah. But anyway, I was just trying to figure out from what I saw on the plan, I didn't see any concrete at all. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Kent, for your second time.
Yeah, so I need some clarification on what I heard from the appellant around insurance. Am I allowed to ask them another question? Well, this is just way too serious for me to take a position on. And nobody wants to delay this. But do I have the option of deferring the decision? The reason I want to consider that is that I really think we need to be very, very aware of the competing scenarios that is detrimental to each other. And is there, well, devastation is putting it mildly, if in fact it's related.
Okay, sorry, we can't do crosstalk here, so at
I
all.
have the floor, so
Okay.
I'd like to carry
Sure,
on.
go ahead.
The potential for someone not having insurance coverage because of this is far too serious to not consider. But what does that mean to the ones that I believe have been hoodwinked by a company that didn't have their information correct? They didn't build according to the way they were supposed to. And whether or not they have to move the fence or move the garage, or do they have to fight the company that did this? Either way, it's big buckets of money and it can devastate them. And I know that there is a history here. And I feel like, I need to know and be confident that if whatever decision we make here, if we've given every opportunity to see if there's a place in there that can alleviate both. And I fear a little that there's not been a cross communication since the deferral, which I was hoping there would be. It's news to me now about the insurance piece. And to make a decision today for me is still a little bit blind and too important to these two residents, sets of property owners, to not give an opportunity.
So let's get some legal advice here
Yes.
on what our options are.
I would like to take a few minutes to speak to the clerk for a second.
Okay, we're going to take a few minute
Am I allowed to speak to the
recess.
appellant to get more information?
No.
Well, the public hearing's
We're-
closed, so.
We're going
it's a
to
decision.
just take a few minutes recess and reconvene.
Can you speak to them? What?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that we are now live.
Thank you. Okay, so I will hand it over to our legal counsel.
Thank you. Through Madam Chair to the councillors. This is a bit of it's different than a public hearing. This is a variance appeal. I know sometimes you're used to a public hearing, deferring the matter, requesting a supplemental staff report that would then bring forward supplemental information that staff would have. In this instance, it's an appeal where evidence has already been heard from both parties and that appeal has been closed. It would be very rare in any appeal to allow additional evidence after that fact prior to the decision being made without the consent of both parties. And so at this point, I think the decision should be made tonight.
So can I ask them if they mind?
Oh, I didn't mention that. No.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you. So based on what I just heard and clarified, it's that the information has been presented, but if both parties agreed to allow for more information to be brought forward, which is me asking the question to give me a little more better understanding of the consequence of insurance, if both agree that that can happen today, I can ask the question.
Okay, hold on. We're not settled on that. Simon, would you like to?
I think one of the potential consequences, though, again, I think we perhaps need to discuss further the implications. Obtaining new evidence at this point, I believe, would have to require a new hearing itself. There would have to be a sufficient period of notice, detailed instruction from both appellants and respondents to be able to participate, to obtain information and evidence. And I think that would require a hearing on a separate day. That's effectively what we would be looking at. I think it would have to be considered as a trial de novo, essentially, like a new hearing entirely. We would have to ignore all evidence that we've received today and receive an entirely new set of evidence. I'm just pausing to see if Meg is in agreement with my thinking on this. I think for that reason, it's not possible at this time to just open up for a new line of questioning on this point. I think you have the information before you, and unfortunately, if you may feel that's insufficient information or evidence before you to make a decision, it is the evidence in this case, in this matter. You have to rely on what you have and make that decision today. I believe that ultimately that's kind of the determination we have to make.
Okay, so again, that doesn't make me very happy. I understand what you're saying. I'm not. I understand it. What I am struggling still with is that I feel like now, as a consequence of that, I mean, to go to another hearing, to have to disregard everything we heard today and base it on something new, that's just not going to happen. We're not going to have enough new information. It's the best of the worst. The best of the worst. I don't even want to vote on it. It's that, to me, it's that bad and it's that ugly. But I know I have to.
Okay.
Just not sure where yet I'm going to land. So,
Okay.
but I'd like to speak to that. So,
okay.
Can I finish? Or do you want to speak?
Can you wrap it up very quickly? Thank you. Go.
Okay, so if I vote in favor of it, it's just as a consequence of this, the evidence, the information that we have. This is a bad situation for both sides. If I vote against the appeal, it's a consequence of still hopeful like following the staff recommendation as we do rely on a lot. And is this appealable after this decision? No. Okay. So no, because this is the appeal. I meant to like UARB or somebody could cry foul and say, no, there's got to be another avenue for me. So if I go the route of staff, which is my norm, it would be as far as saying I have the information, but this is really probably the worst and most difficult decision I've have to make at council, with the exception of homelessness decisions. But maybe that, yeah, exactly. I understand what you're saying. So based on that, know that this is a terrible position to be in. You folks, it's a worse place to be in. But I hope beyond hope that as a consequence of all of this that's happening right now, that the two of you, both property owners, can work together to see if there is a solution that you can support each other with, to find a way forward that alleviates hardship to either one of you. I don't know if I understood the part on the insurance piece enough to know whether or not, is it the fence that's the problem, or is it the place of the building? And so the place of the building, what would it take
Okay,
to
we're gonna
help
have to wrap it up.
this group of people
That's a
to
long.
do that? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And did you have some? No? Okay. Yeah, it is. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
This- well before my time, anyway. Just to clarify, so the appeal is being applied by whom? Just want to clarify. The neighbors. So if they allow the appeal, that means the garage will have to be moved or whatever the case may be. Okay, so I want to make sure I had the right side of the fence.
Right. Okay. Would someone like to call for the question? Okay. Would you like to just kind of clarify again, just kind of what Councillor Hensby was saying about a yes vote versus a no vote, and what it means with the appeal versus the variance?
Oh, sorry. Do you have?
Oh, there we go. All right, through you, Madam Chair, to the councillors. So you just want me to clarify, so. Yes, yep. So allow the appeal is on the floor in accordance with Administrative Order 1. Voting in favor of the appeal will overturn the decision of the development officer and refuse the variance. Denying the appeal will result in upholding the development officer's decision and allow the variance.
Okay, is everyone clear? Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Okay, all those opposed? And we have an abstention. So, okay. Okay. So the appeal has been defeated. Thank you, everyone. This was a very contentious case. Appreciate your patience. So the variance has been upheld. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. We
We're
have
gonna
to
move on
move
now.
on, but perhaps you can contact your counselor tomorrow. And we still have more items on the agenda. So thank you very much. Thank you. And we are moving on now to
Because we're gonna need this if we ever have to go to court, right?
correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Is that where we're at right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, if I can just take a moment to ask the Chair and Vice Chair to switch again.
Switch
but I will
back.
just speak to correspondence. There was correspondence received for item 10.2.1 as well as item 10.1.1. All correspondence has been distributed to members of the committee.
there
Thank
any
you, Chair. I
petitions?
can confirm that the clerk's office has not received any petitions
Any
today.
from counselors? No. No presentations, public participation. We will take on public participation. Speakers can participate for 5 minutes. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak? Colin May, Dartmouth. Please speak to your issue only. No comments on the last hearing.
Colin May, Delia Street, Dartmouth. Every day I walk in the common twice. So last night I walked up through the Catholic cemetery and then up to Bicentennial, and there's the baseball diamond, and there's a whole pile of 5 and 6 year olds learning the very basics of the sport, and there's parents and a few grandparents there, and I just thought it was great to see them there. I'm 81 now, so if I go back, I'm trying to think how many years, but it's over 20. I played cricket on the Halifax Common. We had West Indians, Australians, Canadians, Americans, Scots, and English. And it was interesting. Now, you know, when you serve on volunteer boards, and I've served on many, I've always been, it's business. You put your personal stuff aside. It didn't work out like that on the cricket board. I eventually resigned. But really what I want to say is, you're required under section 66, subsection 6, D, you are required. HRM Charter says you shall work collectively with the federal and provincial governments and with the community. None of that, this is the second time in Dartmouth Common that none of that has taken place in an issue that immediately became a problem. I do not understand why the staff and the councillor never consulted the baseball people about it. Don't understand it. It's the second, previous to that, down in Park Avenue by the oven, on a Saturday, I think 2 years ago, they showed up with a truckload of fruit trees. This was community safety. Oh yeah, we're going to grow fruit, you know, to help feed people, right? They wanted to put it in the worst location, the location where you get a pond after a good downpour, and which historically, in the maps that the city has, it shows you where the pond was. Anyway, they eventually caved in. They realized it wasn't a good place, plus they hadn't consulted the community, and everybody knew it was so away they went, thinking that they were going to, I think the idea was to put it higher up. Never happened. Now, on Councillor Austin's website, not his website anyway, the chat thing, I sent him a message and I said, when did you first become aware of this proposal to put a cricket pitch there? And his answer was a little over 2 months ago. I mean, that's 2 occasions in our district where the statute requires public information and cooperation with the community, and it has never happened. And so my advice here is to both the city and to Councillor Austin is that they apologise to the Dartmouth Minor Baseball League and those participants and make a promise that they'll that will never happen again. You know, if you stick to the law, you don't get into a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any, do I have to ask 3 times? Yes. Are there any other speakers?
That's it.
Are there any other speakers? third and last time. Are there any other speakers? Hearing none, we're moving forward. 2, information items. There are none. Reports, staff, 14.1.1, a planning application 2024-01200, substantive amendment to an existing development agreement at Coosa Lane and Karawatha Lane, Cole Harbour. So this is not a public hearing. Is it first reading?
First reading. I
First
can put the
reading,
motion
so
on
we
the
don't need
floor.
staff to come and speak to it, but they're here if there is something. Councillor Purdy, would you like to put the motion on the floor?
I would, thank you. I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed amending development agreement to permit the addition of secondary suites to the existing development agreement located on Coosa Lane and Karawatha Lane, Cole Harbour, as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated July 14th, 2026, and schedule a public hearing. Okay, thank you. Yes, this has been a very long and ever-changing development agreement, and very frustrating for the residents in close proximity to this, and lots of distrust with the developer. So this is first reading to go towards the public hearing. I have grave concerns about this. This is, I guess, the process that we're to follow.
I remember this back.
Question has been called. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. 14.1.2, short-term rental approach and municipal planning strategies for Eastern Passage, Cow Bay and North Preston, Lake Major, Lake Loon, Cherry Brook, and East Preston. We have staff member here with us.
I'll put it on the
This is
floor.
first reading. Councillor Purdy.
All right, thank you. I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give first reading to consider the proposed amendments to the land use bylaw for Eastern Passage, Cow Bay, and land use bylaw for North Preston, Lake Major, Lake Loon, Cherry Brook, and East Preston as set out in attachment A and B of the staff report dated July 23rd, 2026, and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Thank you. We have a second.
Thank you.
Is anyone like to speak to this?
No, happy to see this move
I have
forward to the
questions.
public hearing.
I'd like to speak to it. Yeah, I just want to know from staff, there's a lot of locations here. How would the public notice go out, like to catchment area, for instance? All of those communities are fairly large, and it would be important that everyone get something. So how are you going to approach that for notice of the public hearing and information? The Beacon.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Community Council. My name is Yan Go. I'm a planner with Plan Growth Strategic Projects. So I'm working on this profile. For a profile like this, do not have a specific site. We normally use our Engage Halifax to publish our notice of public hearing, and also we can do targeted notice through social media, through Facebook, Blue Sky, that HRM use regularly.
Can you remind me what Engage Halifax would do?
Oh, we would just put the notice on the Engage Halifax. We have
in our website.
Yes, shorter rental website for this project.
And hope that everybody just looks at this whenever they have any time to.
Yes,
Sorry.
and they could be.
I'm rambling on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, but what we would normally have in relation to planning is a written notice mailed out to everybody. Now, I see Leah shaking her head. Can you just remind me of how those things work? Because we are getting concerns around people knowing about these public hearings. Or can counselors ask for special privilege on their area where they, no, we can help.
To the chair, so Leah Perrin, Manager of Regional Planning. Yeah, for these broader areas, certainly it is a challenge. But you know, for the regional plan, for any sort of larger area, it would be, you know, in the thousands and thousands of dollars to do mail out notifications for that kind of an area. So yeah, unfortunately, we do need to rely on social media and word of mouth, and certainly the councillors, you know, you'll get a notification if you're able to send those through your networks as well. That's sort of what we're able to do for those broad area notifications.
And in this situation like this, because it is sort of all encompassing for many layers, many communities, how soon would this be likely to come back to Harbour East? Because that limits the ability for counselors to help use their networks to get the information out, right? If it's in a few weeks, we may have print newsletters going out. We may have our own newsletter, e-newses and things, and it may not line up. A meeting? It's not. Well, I'm as the chair. Yeah, I guess I could consider that, but I just want to know what would we normally do? Three weeks from now, or we have to give 3 weeks? Do we not? Notice?
I believe that public, it's 7 days. I'm looking
Is that
at the
all?
solicitor. Yeah, it's quite short, but I mean, there are standard dates set for these meetings. I'm looking at the clerk.
When's the next
My
meeting?
understanding is potentially with some of the planning changes related to COVID and that I don't believe the subsequently rechanged. I believe it is a shorter period of time. It is a 7-day period. This is probably a better question for some other folks in planning. However, I think if you know planning is advising you when is likely to be the notice period, you should listen to staff on that.
Madam Chair.
Councillor Hensby.
Madam Chair, if I suggest, you may want to hold this till the October meeting because the September 3rd is the next meeting, Labor Day, end of summer vacations, first days of school. No one's going to pay attention to this. And I also think we need to engage our African Nova Scotia Integration Office because we're also dealing with the African Nova Scotia communities about information. So I think a broader timeline may be necessary here.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else have any comments around that? No. Okay, so we'll do that at agenda review. But this is good feedback to have. So, okay, anyone want to call the question? Question's been called. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. There are no motions. Anyone from our members have any motion? No, notice of motion. That would be in camera. No, any added items? No notices of motion now. I'm tired. Date of the next meeting, September 3rd. I don't take myself very seriously sometimes. September 3rd, 2026. And just needed a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, folks. Thank you, everyone. That last one, that was rough.